are already live, actually.
All
Yes.
right, and I
Are
think people
already
should be able to
live,
hear us
actually.
now. All
Yes.
right, and I think people
Let's
should be able to
fact
hear
check
us now. All
that.
right,
I'll do that real
and
quick.
I think people
Let's.
should. All right. Yep.
Can you
Sounds
talk?
like people should be able to hear us.
Yeah.
Can they hear you?
All right. Yes, but I think I'm a bit louder than you. You should probably turn me down a little bit if you can do that.
I think I can do that. Good. Well, anyway,
Hmm.
think everything's working now. Sorry about
Oh yeah,
that. We
you turned your audio on so it looped.
Yeah, think we got it taken care of. All right. Good. Sorry about that. So I know we always say this, but this time I think we mean it. Just because there aren't as many cards to talk about, I think this is probably going to be a shorter stream than some of the past ones. I hope, maybe.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Probably not. Probably not. But
Hmm.
all right. Why don't we? I don't know. So first off, I'm here with Kidneys. You all know Kidneys by now. Hold on, Kidneys is too low.
I'm too low. We'll figure it out.
All right. Well, I'll turn Kidneys up a
Now
little
I
bit.
gotta.
How about this? Is this good?
Hello, hello. Test, test, test. It looked fine before a stream, but I don't know. I never know.
All
I'm
right.
also not the person to ask about audio, but
Well, if you can all hear them, then I think we're good. So
yeah. All right, they
great.
said
All
it's good.
right.
We're
Got it
good.
working. We're gonna
No.
we're gonna try to be a shorter stream once we get the audio stuff figured out. Let's see. In order to test it, Kidneys has to sing a musical number.
Bro, I haven't. I was in a church choir till like fourth grade. I don't think I've sung anything publicly since. I mean, that's not true. I did karaoke a few times, but it was terrible. So bad.
Yeah, I think my singing probably violates the Geneva Convention.
I'm with you. I'm with you, buddy. I'd probably get locked away for it. All right. Are we going by overall? I think
I think
ascending,
that's the way
right?
I sorted it. Yeah, we can do it whatever else. But yeah, why don't we take a look? So we had 12 new cards this week in the builder lineups that we get out of missions, and then we also threw in some of the PTCS cards and a few LEs that we can take a look
Mm-hmm.
at. Um, yeah. So any first off, I don't know. Any overall thoughts on the builder lineup? What's your take, Ben?
Gold's always a funny set, right? Because you're like the bottom level cards normally end up being pretty powerful, right? Historically over the years, and normally the perfect cards are great, and gold is always like the you can start to kind of gauge a little bit. I think we're taking individual years a lot more seriously this year, so it's a little harder. But like, what's the perfect card kind of look like? I think George Davis is really funny because he's at another position, so it's gonna be really hard to tell from
Sure.
this one.
Let's
But
pull up George. We can pull up George Davis while we talk about him.
hmm
Yeah. So I mean, I thought coming in that I wasn't sure what to expect because on the one hand, I think there's generally been a desire for build a lineup to be a really useful and big mission program. It's kind of these are going to be the main mission cards that we have, I think, over the next couple of months. And so
hmm
you want them to play because we want there to be a balance between kind of mission, packable, and tournament. Uh,
Yep,
but
I
I
totally
was a
agree.
little worried about gold. And actually, I will say I don't think the balance is there right now. I think there are very few tournament cards that play really in any of the metas. Maybe the diamond metas are the ones that are closest. But I think I'm using very few. The couple I'm using are really good. Like the Sammy Strang is really good for gold, but I can't think of too many others.
Like golds you would play in a diamond format.
Or even just tournament cards that are currently key meta cards.
Oh, just in general. I mean, York certainly is, right? Strang is. I think Vita Blue is. I think I'd play Vita Blue in low diamond almost certainly. Um, Other than that, not really, right?
Yeah,
None of the
there are a few other
silvers, I
diamonds.
think.
I think there are some diamonds that I would play a lot. York's up there. Jimmy Key, Ray Prim.
I don't really like Key or Prim actually that much. I have Granky being a little better than Key, and it's like I'll play Key into some things. He's just not like open, modern, or diamond. I'm playing Key, right? I would rather play Granky, but
I'd rather play Granky
uh,
too, I think. But Key usually
yeah,
somehow ends up in my build somewhere, just if nothing else, like a serviceable FD out of the pen.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're in open, he's a great pen card. I just not probably not a starter level card for me, I think.
Sammy Strang's been incredible. Sammy Strang
Yes.
had like 10 WAR for me the first league season I had and was our MVP.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the cool part about Strang is, like, he's a very flexible card, right? Even in tournaments where you can make him play second one way and then one of the corners another way. Like, he's just so strong overall.
And a switch hitter.
Really excellent card. Yeah, I mean, he does it all, basically. He's great, so...
But I did have a point with all this, which was just that... I did have a point with all this, which was just that I felt like the jump between silver and gold is probably the biggest in the game right now.
Yes, completely agree. I think the number of silver cards I play in gold is like so small, and I think there's some positions in gold that are like insanely strong, right? Like the benchmark to be a gold first baseman is absurd, you know? Like some of those bats are end game level bats right now, so I'd very much agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think like a good comparison is you can compare, say, Ortiz, who, you know, around release was clearly the best silver bat, I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And like the Mission Hoyles is a really similar bat, and you know, also eligible for catcher.
Yeah, with good catcher defense, right? Not amazing, but he's 80, like, you know, 80 ability, 60 arm. He's solid, right? And I think the only silvers, funny enough, I was playing in gold. Sometimes I'll play Bill Hall. That card is just so silly. But sometimes, like, I'll play Chipper VL, or I'd play Silver Jansen. I think Silver Jansen was a must-play, and they actually managed to upgrade those cards, so I was really happy.
Yeah,
with that.
I think we're going to probably talk a bunch about Jansen coming up. So,
yep.
So I think because of that, I was unsure kind of what to make of the build lineups, because on the one hand, I think there's clearly an intent to make these viable cards in a bunch of formats, but on the other hand, you really need a big jump from silver to gold right now, and so I was a little worried about how many of these would end up playing. And I guess, yeah, so why don't we start taking a look. So George Davis, so he is the build lineup shortstop, but this card doesn't play short.
Which is funny. Kind of a shame.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because gold shortstop, I think, is what you were going to say, is a very weak position, I feel, right now. I think if any spot in gold, like gold shortstop, gold center field, need a good card there, right? So,
especially because the card I've been running there is Schmidt, and Schmidt is this righty with really funny reverse splits, where I actually, even though Schmidt's a righty, I really want a verse left shortstop option.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's why I've been playing Bill Hall, right? Is because I'll play Bill Hall versus left and Schmidt VR, and sometimes I'll run Vern Stevens. It really depends on what I need for backups or whatever, right?
Yeah, but, Hall has sneakily good range.
Yeah, and he's got like 90-something power, right? And not a terrible rest of his bat. Like, Hall is an excellent card. So I was hoping for real shortstop. It's a shame this is third base. I don't know. I mean, we're not talking about the card yet, and the card is like, you know, a similar glove to like, you know, a Jim Tomei or a Batista, and the bat is not really comparable.
The bat's not even close to any of those. Yeah, so I don't have this card in the top 20, even like at third base right now.
No, I mean, it's really bad. The kind of the thing too to think about, and I'm sure you'd agree, is when a card has good like contact ratings, right? So BABIP, Ks, and GAP, it really needs good defense, because the point where those, you know, contact ratings are better, defense will also be better, you know, and this card doesn't really do either of those things. It's not even that great of a contact hitter, and it's got 40 I, 60 power. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, the bat's also just the wrong shape for the current meta. Actually, the funny thing is, I was kind of looking at, you know, some of these updated models this week, and this silver George Davis ends up as not being a horrible verse left option in gold.
He's okay. I think I'd rather play Hall. He's not bad, though. I actually, even the bronze George Davis is actually pretty sweet. He is the wrong shape. but he's got
Yeah.
a much better glove, and he has a really good bat if we weren't in this weird tournament environment right now. So,
Yeah,
um,
I would say, I think I'm gonna actually run the Silver George Davis in some of the PTCS cap builds.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Totally see that. I mean, he has the eye. The other cards I would think about though would be like, is this card better or worse than like Eddie Lake, for example, has a bit more defense, I think,
so
and
yeah,
similar
Leg is
bat.
the card that Warbot immediately just loved because of the eye before the George Davis. But George Davis
Right.
has the same eye as Lake, uh, but a lot more gap power. I see a
Sure. I
mention
mean,
of
he does.
VR as well. I see kind of a mention. I think I've seen him pop up a lot in the gold meta.
He's a good second baseman. I don't think he's quite a shortstop, but I would certainly consider him at second base. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, so I
he's
think
nice
go ahead.
because he's flexible. You don't think the 8 more range on Lake is worth the bat difference between Lake and Davis? I could see it either way, um, but something to think about.
It's pretty close. So let's see. I mean, the model I've got has Davis about point 0.2 or point 0.3 WAR better with the bat, and Lake, probably about that much better with the glove, and it's pretty close to a wash.
Yep, I think I would probably agree with that. Seems very
Um,
similar. So, in
Lake was one of
terms
my
of
favorite cards from from the outset, just because
yeah,
that card had so much eye with the range. But yeah, all right. So as for this George Davis,
it's F tier, right? Are you ever going to
I,
play this card?
I cannot. Not only am I not going to play this card, but even if I considered playing this card, it wouldn't let me play another George Davis that probably is better.
I would actually contest. Well, I mean, it's a third baseman, so it's a little different, right? But like, yeah, I don't know. It's not even competitive with the silver chipper from last week.
Okay, actually,
So,
I do
uh,
have a stupid question here. Uh,
okay,
just because I don't see the rating here, I can look it up.
yep.
It does say he's qualified to learn center.
Oh, what are his outfield ratings? I'll take a look. I have
Yeah,
it
I'm just
roughly
wondering
open.
if there's any way this card is just because center is actually a bit of a black hole also. That's center field's the other
Well,
place in gold where you're struggling a little bit to figure out what to do.
right, but so this question has to be if he actually had experience in center, because he will not play like he is trained in center if you played him there.
Yeah,
You
I was
could
just
play him there.
wondering, could this card, if this card were trainable
Yeah.
in center, would
I'll
he have been any good? I mean, actually, what are you running in center right now? I recently started running Roy Thomas one way, and then maybe that's where you put
consider
Strand.
that. You'll give Snellman too hope. It's too much hope. I don't think Thomas is quite it. If you're true platooning, you do. I think Granderson and Weimer. I think Weimer is by far the best center fielder. And then the question is, do you want to platoon him, right? So, outfield ratings, he's 56 range, 45 error, 54 arm. So he's not
Okay,
a center
so
fielder
this is
either.
also not a center fielder. So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I think we can move on.
Yeah, we can move on. He does have a real pitch, but he has zero stamina to back it up. Sadly.
On the plus side,
Uh,
I do see that Midnight Dreary got a live Mookie Betts, so we
oh,
at least someone's
congrats.
got something out of this stream.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't. I think Stan is okay. Most of the time, I'd rather play a little bit better of a glove and center than Stan. If you want to take out of the park zone rating at face value, Stan is one of the better options VR. But also, gold is super lefty heavy too on the good teams. So I would be much more inclined to play Joey Weimer than any of the other cards right now.
the thing about Stan is in OTP 23, that would have been a dominant card at this point in the cycle. But it's just
Yeah, I
so
mean,
BABIP heavy.
yeah, I know. Like most people, we all did, right? When we first looked at Stan before we had models ready, we're like, "Oh my gosh!" Right? Like,
Yeah.
what is that? And then the funny thing is, it might still be that good of a card. It's just we don't really know because the environment is so depressed right now, right? So,
Yeah, I
you know.
think it is that good of a card in a higher BABIP environment. Like if you were getting to play
Hmm.
the league setup, but with gold
Yep.
cards, Musel's dominant.
Yeah.
But
Oh
he
yeah.
just
I mean,
isn't.
you
You know.
You play him in probably left field every time, right? Because range then becomes more important too if that bat is better, right? So
Yeah, you play. Well,
um,
you either play him in left, or you do what I'm doing with someone like Chu in silver, and just you stick him in center because the bat's so good.
you eat it. I don't know if I could quite eat it, but maybe. I mean, maybe at that point we are playing Roy Thomas or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right,
All
we
right.
gotta get to card 2 because
All
it's
right.
been 20 minutes and we've done one of them.
All right. All right. We're gonna move on here. So Kenley Jansen, this I think is going to be a trickier discussion.
Okay.
So first off,
In
here's the
what
card.
way?
So
Yeah.
here's the card.
Uh-huh.
So this card has enormous PBABIP. I think
Very
is
good.
this the biggest PBABIP we've seen in a two-way card? Niedenfuhr is
128
better one way,
VR.
right? But not the
I'm
other.
pretty sure. No, I'm pretty sure. The tournament reward Joe Barry is better. Yeah, Barry is
Yeah,
114 VL and 119.
Sorry, that's
VR.
right.
He is
Barry.
the
Well,
best.
well, Barry is probably the best card in the game, except that as a reliever.
Yeah, I mean Barry and I think the card that came out like 2 weeks ago, Ace Adams, is a similar kind of build.
Yeah.
They're both incredible cards. Or not Ace Adams. I'm sorry. It's Mike Adams. Mike Adams. Yeah, he's also incredible.
So this is a huge PBABIP, and the
Mhm.
stuff is also huge, and then the rest is
Yep.
kind of splitty.
Well, the control's the same. The home run is splitty. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
And the control's not
so-
great, but it's kind of in the range. I mean, if you're comparing this with a card like Newhouser, it's certainly in that range.
Isadafa with a great point. Wayne Gross is comparable PBABIP. He has 110 both ways. We totally forgot about the best pitcher in the game. He's a bronze third baseman, Charles, but he has 110 PBABIP.
Oh, does he? I haven't even looked at that.
I tried throwing him in a tournament. It did work. He got out of the first inning fine and then got destroyed, probably because he has one stamina, and he was out of it after that.
Wait a sec. So does that mean that if we run the 1876 Tourney Lab again, Wayne Gross is your ace?
Well, he has no other pitcher ratings. He literally just has 111 PBABIP.
Yeah, but in that era, he doesn't really
Don't
need
you
any
need-
other pitcher ratings.
Because walks don't happen either. Yeah, I mean he's certainly in contention.
Yeah, if there's no strikeouts, no walks, no homers,
No
everything's
homer.
in play. Just pick your biggest. And
That's
Wayne Gross
very
he has a
funny.
better bat than anybody else you can put on the mound.
Yeah, he would be great. The problem is he needs all the pitches probably to leave his 5-day slot to be able to throw again. So that's what we had to do. I had to set a 6-man rotation. I opened the first spot. I set it to strict order, and it lets you make him a pitcher, but it doesn't let you give him a role. So I just gave him secondary emergency, and it threw him like the starter. It was great.
Oh no, but
Love
I
it.
think that's what I did for my Tourney Lab build in 1876 last time, because I wanted to just constantly cycle through pitchers and like pinch hit every single time they came up. So I ran a 1-man rotation with an empty slot.
Mm-hmm. No, I know a lot of people did that.
Anyway, right. So this Kenley, I really don't know what to make of this card. So here's the problem I have.
Okay.
Or fine. I can go first.
Would
on
you
this
like
one.
me to go? I don't care. I'll go first because I've talked about it already. If you'd prefer.
All right, then I can go first, and we'll see what you think. So on the one hand, I have this as a clear top 5 bullpen option in Modern, and there are some situations, because a lot of the tournaments that you're going to use him in are historical, he becomes even better in a historical format.
Okay.
So excellent card. The problem is I have him right behind the silver Kenley Jansen.
I was wondering if you would say that. So let's talk about that because when I've
Actually,
played
hold on.
Silver Kenley.
I can put the comparison up on the screen while we do it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. The problem is the actual compare won't show us BABIP or home run. It just shows us movement. It's kind of useless.
Oh, so that's not a very good compare.
No, it's really not. I mean, you could filter by Kenley and have them side by side in there and show us that way. But yeah, it's a very interesting discussion. I will say, um, my model actually doesn't have it close. It actually quite heavily prefers the gold one. And the silver one is so good, Charles. Like, I have the silver one as the second best pitcher in gold, with the only better one being Tom, right? And obviously Tom is super splitty, so you're taking that with a grain of salt there, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, the gold one I just have as a straight improvement, actually, by quite a significant margin, because he's basically Tom both ways.
Here's most of the comparison. The P BABIP
Right.
is really high for both. It's actually, I think it's, was it 111 and 112 or something. So they're both.
It's very similar. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, but actually this, so I know where the difference in our models is, and I think this is a good discussion.
All right, let's get into it.
So I'm gonna guess what your model is doing is taking it against just sort of what the data set of hitters is in gold. And what I'm doing is a little bit different.
Would you like to explain what you're doing?
Yeah. So
Okay.
what I'm doing is assuming that for late innings option, I'm going to assume that you see a lot of pinch hitters, and so I'm looking at
Okay.
both of these cards against a very lefty heavy setup. Whereas if I were evaluating them as a starter, then I would end up with the gold Kenley being a more significant improvement.
All right. Well, so
So
I
the
will
question is,
divulge
which is the
here
right way to
from-
think about it?
Well, I don't actually have it being a split. I actually have the gold being an improvement VL and VR. Um, so
I'm just looking at copy.
it's it's not very funny, Gaba. Very funny. I love Gaba, dude. He's the best troll and out of the park, by far. So the difference is, I think, I just don't have the home run being that important. Going from 80 to what 47 VL. I have
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. It's like 10 more home runs per 600. It's not that big of a deal compared to like this absurd amount more strikeouts and better walks as well, right? So
Yeah, and the walks do mean something. They're, if you're gonna
It's
put a
not
lot of
about
effort into
walks, it's
pitcher
about-
BABIP, then because you want to prevent base runners, walks
You
are
wanna
another way to prevent
prevent-
base runners.
totally agree, right? So it's close versus lefties. The problem really is, Charles, like I have like 70 more strikeouts, 10 less walks for 10 more home runs, and I think the BABIP is pretty negligible, right? It's a little higher on the gold
Let me
card,
see what
just
I'm getting.
barely.
So I think the gold,
But-
I'm getting something like an extra between 2.5 and 3 Ks per 9, but also almost half a homer per 9. So that's
half a homer per 9. Oh, that's a very big difference.
yeah.
That's-
But it's
that's
also a
clearly
lot of
where we're
strikeouts.
divulging,
But it's
right?
also a lot of strikeouts.
Oh wait, what was your strikeouts per 9 again?
An extra like 2.5 to 3 per 9. So like one every, basically, one every 2 or 3 appearances.
Yeah, I mean that would line up with mine. I think our delta is the home run right now for sure.
And I think that's because I'm both picking a lefty heavy sample, and I'm expecting in gold that you're facing some of these really big power bats.
Oh, I was talking exclusively left-handed sample here. I was just comparing VL exclusively. That's what I have it being like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the difference is when I did tournaments, right? I didn't set it up the way I did my league sheet. So if you remember my league sheet, I have that whole thing where I built in what your opponent should probably be playing and then how do you beat it, right? I didn't do that for tournaments because the problem is with tournaments, if you're not good enough to beat the crappy team, you're gonna lose. You're gonna get knocked out, right? It's not league, it's very different.
Oh, I see. I think that's mostly true. Although if you're looking at gold, the quick format's one where if you're good enough to beat the crappy team, you're still losing to the crappy team, at least a third of the time, and it's a single elimination.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, that's not wrong. I do also agree with Isadafo's point that I would probably, in a cap, just pay for the silver and not the gold because it's another 10 points. And I think most of the time I would agree with that, even having the gold being quite a bit better than the silver.
Yeah, I think in the cap I'm always playing the silver over the gold, but actually in a lot of caps I'm playing the bronze. The bronze is also a really good card.
Yeah, I think the funny thing is, like, I had silver Kenley like number 2 in gold, and I think I had the bronze like number 2 or number 3 in silver. You know, like Kenley has had a pretty good track record so far of good cards.
Yeah, definitely. So I think I think I'm going to end up probably not playing this card almost at all, but it's also a really good card.
Yeah, I mean, I'll play this in open gold. I'm actually just gonna play it in League right now. I think it's kind of dumb in League.
Actually, you know who it reminds me of is the one
What?
there are two other cards I ended up in the same situation with, but I think the one like right at the beginning of the game was the Diamond Frank Tanana. Just
Because of how good the silver one is.
Yeah, it was a really good
Yeah.
card, and I just could never play him because any format where I looked at playing him, I could play the silver instead. And like
Right,
the Wilbur Wood's like that too.
Well, yeah. I mean, the difference is like if you're playing open diamond or whatever. Like, obviously you're gonna play the bigger one. But no, I agree. But you, even in an open, would rather play the silver than the gold. That's rather interesting to me.
It's really close. So I have the silver like a tiny tick higher, but I think in an open, if I'm running Kenley, I'm probably running him as a middle innings guy instead of a late innings guy, which means he's getting a little more righty lefty mix, and so then probably the gold ends up a little ahead.
Right, because you have you're just expecting that if they're late innings guys, they're gonna face a lot of lefties, and how much worse do you have the gold VL than the silver? Curiously.
Give me a second. Give me a sec to run that real quick.
Yeah.
So where are you thinking we put this card? Because it is a good card, and yeah, Nizadafo, that's thanks to Nersha for the raid.
Oh, thank you. Hello. Hi, Raiders.
Hey, and thanks to Nersha who also runs a really cool stream, and I guess we don't need to tell the people that just came in about it.
True.
Izadafa's right. The perfect Kenley's gonna be incredibly silly.
Yeah, I concur. I mean, I hope it is. Like, that was a little bit of my worry is, like, can you keep building off of how good the silver one is? And they can, I think. So, hope that the diamond one lives up to the hype as well, right?
Yeah. So, all right, just looking at it real quick.
So, we're gonna differ here, obviously, because to me, this is an S tier card, I think. But funny enough, even looking back, like, I would still, the silver is still an S tier. I think this is still S tier. But
Yeah.
I know you're probably I mean, I guess just most of the time you'd play the silver then, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I do have them as a fair bit apart versus left. Even the silver's not great versus lefties as a matchup guy. But you're at least willing to run him. So.
Yeah, I don't. So that's the thing, Alex, right? Because even with how much, like, I have the gold being quite a bit better than the silver, and I still don't think I would pay the 10 points in a cap for the upgrade. Like, unless I had it. I mean, some of these caps are just so loose, you would just do it to do it, right?
Like the PTCS gold cap is incredibly loose, although I guess there you don't need to really run much of a pen.
Well, but also there, if you were going to run one, you'd run the gold one because he has more control, right?
Yeah.
I think, and
I feel like I don't. I feel like I can't give it an S tier if we keep talking about how we're not actually going to find ways to play it. But it is a really good card.
If we're not playing it in a cap, I agree. I would give it an A tier, though. I think it's too good to be.
Yeah, I think it's at least an A tier card. I think the problem is that the silver might be an S tier card.
Oh, the silver is absolutely S tier. I don't think there's any contention about that between us, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's take a look.
Well, we cut that down from 20 minutes to 15 minutes, so we're doing better.
All right. We're We're gonna do better. If nothing else, I just noticed that the bronze only fired, and I've got about 45 minutes to fix my build because I'm pretty sure I've got a couple cards in there that aren't bronze only anymore.
I don't even know what my build is, and I'm signed up for that one. So, oh
All right.
well.
Well, I could.
We're
I
not
could. All right.
picking
Remind me. I'll fix the build on stream if we're still going.
we will be.
It's a public build anyway, right? All right.
So the issue with this card is it doesn't actually have a point in right field, right? Because I think if it does, it's really interesting. Then, you know, I can tell you what I would think if it gained a point in right field magically.
Sure. Yeah, we can run that. In the meantime, in center. So this is something that's kind of funny this year because 52 in center field. I feel like that must have been rescaled this year because you're still getting 69 range.
Yeah, I mean the arrow certainly is a little overweighted, right? So that kills it a little bit. I don't know if there's breakpoints or exactly how that works, but I agree it's probably a little different than previously. If I set this to 89. Channel points. Charles, we're nerds. We're not allowed to have fun things on our channel.
I know. Oh, apparently I bought a card.
Oh! Congrats! You got an Elijah Green. Very nice.
I did get an Elijah Green. Speaking of which, I recommend buying Elijah Green.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Because I'm looking at the gold model, and he's about as good as this Carlos Beltran in right field.
Yeah, no, it was good timing. If anyone wants to sell me, some of the other things that I'm buying right now on the cheap, get him featured on stream. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this Beltron, I end up actually a lot higher on, I think, than you do.
No, I think actually we're gonna agree because he's like number 6 in the center. The problem is, am I gonna play this card or am I gonna play, a similarly defensive Hack Wilson? I don't think there's a question. Like if you're punting defense, it's just Hack Wilson. It might even be Sammy Strang in center, but like I don't know. I think
there are a couple differences. So I think this one, although it says 52 in center, it's a range and arm heavy. The outfield air is bad, but 69 range. If you compare that to Hack Wilson,
yeah, it's the same. Right?
You're getting. Let me see. Okay, sorry. So I see it's the arm. That's right. Hack Wilson actually has a couple more points of range.
No, Hack is very comparable defensively, and the bat delta is crazy, right?
So I'm trying to figure out why I end up, because I end up with Belt. Oh, that's why. Because this base running I get a lot of value from.
Yeah, I mean I do too, but I'm getting like I don't know, 0.4 WAR out of the base running, and the bat is like 0.7, and the glove is negligible.
Yeah, so I get this card. I actually get
like 0.9.
Yeah, so I get this card to be a little bit ahead of Hack. I have him 4th in center. I mean, it's pretty crowded right around there.
Who's your top center though?
Roy Thomas.
The Warbot Eye, what a classic. Yeah, I don't really have Roy Thomas in the talk. He shows up at 10 VR. He doesn't show up VL.
Well, because it's going off WOBA. But if I'm going off OPS, which is another way we could look at it, then I would have Hack, number 3 or something. I mean, the funny thing is,
I'm going off WOBA.
Okay, but if you're going to do that, play Sammy Strang. Maybe this is where you play him.
Do you? Because I think the gap between like Strang and Weimer, or Strang and Hack, or Strang and Berger is a lot smaller than like the gap between like Strang and somebody in right field, or Strang and Vargas in left field, right? So
yeah. I mean, I still don't know what I should be playing at this point in center. I think I've tried, Berger. I've tried Hack. I'm now trying some Thomas.
Yeah, can we play Strang at every position, please? Yeah, I'd like that. I mean, Matt Kemp, like, if we're talking about playing Hack Wilson, then you gotta consider Matt Kemp in a platoon in center, right? Like, that's gotta be an option now.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's a thing, right? That exists. I mean, I don't see it with Beltran, man. I mean, obviously you like him quite a lot more than I do if you think he's better than the hack, but
Yeah,
maybe did you ever figure out a way to adjust for the environment? Did you ever do that? Um,
that's what I've been trying to
we
do.
talked
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
So well, so what I'm doing right now is I'm running it as an even more extreme version of what the linear weights were in 1968.
Okay, I think Charles or Delta here is probably that the weights for the environment probably favor hack a lot more than Beltran would be my guess.
It could be. Yeah,
That
because
would be my guess.
I think part of the difference is even just that 8 points of I, starts to build up a little bit.
Yeah, probably. But
Let me see what happens, just if I run it in a slightly more modern environment. Like in terms of BABIP, I mean. If I run it in a slightly higher BABIP environment, I can see what would change. Yeah, so where do you put this card? It's also kind of got these really funny splits where like you don't actually want to platoon the card.
Can you change the stream back to the gold one, please? Just so they can see it, because they're on the silver one right now.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. My thing has him a mile better versus righties than versus lefties. I don't actually have it being close. Because you're gaining gap and avoid K, but it's only off of
eye's
50
worth a lot.
BABIP. Yeah. So, do you platoon him VR with somebody VL? I can't see it, because I would just rather play Musial or Burger than, or Granderson.
I think I'd rather do almost any of those, yeah. But at the same time, I don't think this is a bad card.
I think it's better than I thought it was. Like, I have it being basically an average gold center fielder, but the thing I always tell people is if you're running the average cards, you're probably running the wrong cards, right?
Yeah, and I guess the problem is there's no situation where you can really make the card shine.
Nope. I mean, it would have to be some scenario where nobody hits, so you need to steal bases or something. I don't really know.
So what do you want to give it?
I think C is probably fine for
bad.
it.
Give it a C for average.
If we're not gonna play it, it'll be a B.
It's just unfortunate because center's someplace where I think we were looking for a card, and this is close to the card we're looking for.
It's close. Is it alpha? The problem is if I'm playing a center fielder both ways, I'm probably just playing Weimer and like kind of beating it because he plays awesome defense and he steals. And yeah, his bat's a lot worse than Beltran VR, but I think it's fine. Let me go. Just undo giving Beltran a point in right field.
Yes, we did grade George Davis an F because the scale doesn't go to G.
Yeah, he's not really that much better in right field. I mean, he runs into the same problem of like Musial and then Elijah Green, South Fralick VR, right? So I think it's kind of the same thing. And then even maybe Lance Berkman in right field if you're a true believer in war, right?
I'm kind of hopeful for this card going forward, though.
This Zobrist or the Beltran?
No, the Beltran. Well, Zobrist too.
Oh, well, I think people missed last year. Carlos Beltran had an excellent perfect card. It just came out like a month too late. And if we get that card again right now, I think it's extraordinarily good.
Yeah.
So I was really excited to see him as a build to lineup. I think that card is great. So, Ben Zobrist.
So he's got I, and he plays a bunch of positions. And he plays a bunch of positions.
Like him a bit more.
And he plays low gold.
Does he start in low gold? I'll flip to low gold just to hypothesize a world where that comes back, right? I don't think it exists right now, but be a sec. My Excel has decided.
So first off, actually, this is listed in right, but Zobrist is Zobrist is the second baseman in the set. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
He is also like 70 range at second base.
Okay.
I don't think he is
Mr.
Mr.
He's
Black.
a right fielder. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. He's only a right fielder. I don't also think he's playable in the low diamond. I think there's a lot of other better cards that have better defense, better eye, BABIP than this card. It's also like a platoon only, so you're talking about in low diamond deadball, he's only a VL right fielder. And there's probably just better versions of this card too.
Although, at least in low diamond dead ball, at least in low diamond dead ball, you have room to platoon.
Oh, you do. I'm not saying like you
Yeah.
can't do that. There's other cards I would rather
Well,
play in
I
low
mean,
diamond
I feel
deadball.
like there are two cards that I'd rather platoon. Is righty bats ahead of this guy in right field, and they're both named Bob Allison.
Uh oh, like just in low gold? Yeah, I mean,
Well,
yeah.
I,
Well,
I'd
not
rather
in low,
play the I'd
not
rather
in,
play the low gold Bob Allison ahead of this, but I'd also, in dead ball, I think
not
I'd possibly rather play the low diamond.
maybe actually. Power's a little bit more important in deadball this year than previous years for whatever reason. Um, Let me just
Yeah,
check something
so
on
I
the
have
side
this
here.
as the third best, just plain gold right field option, in part because it's so tough to find a good right fielder. But it's third best.
Wait.
Yeah.
Hold on. Context. In gold, or in low gold, in open gold.
So open gold, I've got a clear number one is Sammy Strang if you're willing to put him there.
Okay.
But I've got this as a two. If you run him as a two-way player, I've got this number three, but as part of kind of a bunch of things
All right.
mashed together.
We gotta talk then, because I don't even have it remotely close. I have this card as number 11 VL, does not show up VR or overall. Um, like there's
That's
like
where I have the bat. So I think probably the difference is what we're doing with the defense, because there's a ton of defensive value here if that's important.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do have him showing up number 11 overall, and I'm giving him the only card I have better defensively in right field is Weimer. And I'm giving him like a full point of war, a little bit over for his defense, like 1.1. But the bat is negative value. Like it's a bad bat. Um, it's actually just bad both ways. I even have it being good VL. So I don't know. Um,
Yeah, see, I
I
think I'm willing to run this. Let me find.
That's crazy to me, because, like, wouldn't you. Like, I had, like, Weimer, Musial, Green, Strang, Allison, Steer, the PTCS card, Sammy Souza, Rap Dixon, Nick Swisher, and then this card. Uh, I don't. I don't really think he's, like, in the ballpark of, like, Harrelson and below, but, like, Steer, like, the top six are just a lot better, I think.
I'm trying to figure out where. I'm just looking at the raw numbers, and I'm trying to figure out if I have a typo somewhere, because this does look higher than I'd expect, and I'm just trying to make sure I understand where it comes from.
Yeah, I mean, maybe look at the rates or something. I rock this. That might be a little too high.
No, okay, no, I see what's happening. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, the problem the Hughes man is when a card plays multiple positions, it actually has to play those positions, and in an era where the contact, like the Babbitt's actually going to play VL, his defense doesn't play at second or short, right? Um, You have him as third, so third tier, not third overall. Is
yeah,
it awful? Yeah, I would have him third tier. I wouldn't have him third overall, right? Like Strang is number one. Then you kind of have a bunch of guys from like 2 to 6, and then a bunch of guys from 7 to 12, and he's in the 7 to 12, right? So,
yeah. So
um,
I've got him about 18th. It looks like with the bat, and then
is that a positive value bat?
depends who your average bat is. But probably I would guess below average. I'd guess that's a
Yeah.
negative value bat for what's being run in gold.
Okay, because I have it as a negative value bat. In like really good defense, and then barely above average base running.
But I'm getting a lot of defensive value, so I think that's probably the difference. And I don't know the right answer because I think that depends a lot on exactly what pitcher BABIP is doing.
That's a fair point. I will say, if you're not waiting for the new environment, I mean, defense is like, I have it like being a third of what it was worth last year because of this crazy thing we're in right now, right?
So
Um,
what I've found is that infield defense, mostly is going down. But on the
okay.
other hand, okay, so maybe let me try. Maybe yeah, I think this is a good way to explain where I'm coming from. But I don't. But I want to be clear that I don't know that it's right. Uh, some of the stuff I mention on stream, I'm kind of saying like, I've worked out what the game engine does. This is the answer. Like, this is what you should be doing. I'm not saying that here. I'm kind of giving you a
Mhm.
thought process and
Right.
okay. So one way to look at it is what happens to linear weights when you go into an extremely low BABIP environment. And
Right. Yeah.
and
I
what
mean, I can tell
happened
you.
yeah, I was gonna say, so in 1968, for example, because that's a number that those are ones that have been worked out.
Right.
The answer is that the value of a walk and a single kind of stayed comparable, but the
Okay.
value of extra base hits went up a fair bit, and the value of home runs went up a lot compared with.
Let me hold on. Let me pull up the 1968 weights here.
Yeah, here I can put
I
something in the
can
stream.
no,
Or,
I'll get them. So I just compare to what you have versus what I have, right? Oh
yeah.
my gosh! When I scroll down on Fangraphs, the header does not follow with me. How dare it? It's too far away. Come back.
Here, I'll put
Can I?
this. I'll put this in the chat for everybody as well. If anyone wants
Yeah.
to kind of take a look, at least I think this is the source that I grabbed from.
I'm just grabbing them from Fangraphs because I gotta make it an Excel file and then lock this header in place.
Sorry, that's
All right, top row
except apparently that's
frozen.
the wrong one. Hold on. I put the wrong link
Yeah,
in there.
I don't think we're gonna be very close at all because of this. Because I can tell you what's going on.
All right.
And let me put up a comparison. So
Okay.
PT
Here you go.
24.
Here. I found the compare. I found a different comparison. Here. This is I think the source that I had been going through.
Yeah, let me make sure this lines up with Fangraphs or whatever. 68. Oh my gosh, this also headers. People, lock in your headers. The full list. Oh, the click here links to a Google document that doesn't exist anymore. I'm just gonna
Okay.
manually put this in
Does yours
Excel real
match?
quick.
I just put a link in the chat as well. Anyone can take a look at. Does yours match that?
The Fangraphs ones, do they match
My
this?
second
Let's
one, this
take a
Beyond the
look.
Box Score link.
Oh yeah, no, I'm comparing the book Beyond the Box Score to the Fangraphs real quick. Um, uh, e... No, they are different.
Okay, then that's probably.
Oh, because the Fangraphs one. Oh well, the stolen bases are No, they're all a little different. Yeah, so let's use the Beyond the Box Score. It's not that far off, Charles. It's not that far off. I will. I'll paste
Well, I
this
guess
in
the big
here.
question. I'm looking at the one Isadafo posted now for comparison. The question is, does it go the same way? And it looks like it does. So what happens is that in this low BABIP environment, the value of extra base hits and particularly home runs is going up significantly compared with the value of singles.
Right.
And so one of the things that I think that means is that outfield defense becomes more important and infield defense becomes less important.
I mean, if it does, but I don't have it going up by these same rates that it happened in real life, right? And that certainly could be my end, but I've replicated, Tom Tango's thing, I think, perfectly. I hope so. And a lot of the weights are vastly different, so I can throw you a comparison in 1 second here.
Yeah, so we should check because I think that's going to be the
Yeah.
big difference here because what we're really asking is does Zobrist's glove make him playable? Because
Yeah,
I
I
think we can
think.
agree the bat does not.
Well, and I think also, I don't have CFIP. Let me get the last thing there. Let's all of these make them this big. This one gets to be.
Yeah.
And then run slash PA is a simple. I'm hoping that's not. A lot of these calculations are not exactly as advertised, right?
So maybe this is one
Run.
to, yeah, I mean, maybe this is one to take up later because it's more complicated than we can kind of figure out live.
No, I mean I can just send you this and
Yeah,
you'll be
I
able
can do the
to, right?
comparison. But
Yeah.
I think that's where the difference in our cards is going to be.
Right,
So,
but it's the difference is it's not really that low run scoring because people have adapted to the environment, right? Like because people are now just playing home run hitters and walk hitters, right? So the run scored isn't really that far down. Like it's greatly above 1968. The comparable thing is probably the actual BABIP number, but in terms of the runs being produced, it's
right.
vastly different, right?
So what I tried to
Um,
do is to figure out,
I'll make it
yeah, so what
the
I tried
header
to
on
do is
that.
to figure out sort of what the right weight is for a double or triple compared with a
Right.
single in an environment where, so PT24, so modern era, you're what, 310-ish or something. 1968 was like 291.
Yeah.
Um, and so the question is what happens when you're in like a 230 or 240 BABIP environment. And if you decide that, everything should just keep scaling that way, so that the value of extra base hits just keeps going way up because it's so hard to score without them, then you're going to conclude that the outfield defense is worth a lot. Whereas if it's
Right.
more like softball, where a double's the same as a single, you still have to wait for the guy to hit a ball out of the park, well, then you can punt outfield defense. Um, I don't know what the right answer is.
Well,
Yeah.
Izadafo has come to the same conclusion I have, right? Which is actually doubles and triples are worth less than they were last year. Because there's less of them, but people are scoring in alternative methods. Um,
Because the other thing
yeah,
is
and
that
he's doing it a bit differently, but
the other thing is that stolen bases seem to be more difficult this year.
yep, no, definitely agree with that. And they're not worth a lot either because when you get somebody on, people are just hitting home runs, right? So why would you try and steal either? Yeah, no, I agree, but
So
gosh,
yeah. So I think
yeah,
so I think that's the difference in the models. And as I was saying, for a lot of the other stuff, there are things I'll confidently say I'm pretty sure the model I've got is right on, and this is not one of
hmm,
those. This is definitely
right,
one where I think,
right.
I at least don't think I know the answer. I think I'm still trying to figure out uh, like what the right way is to handle it. Um,
Yeah, so I mean, given
all right, so what are we doing
if
with?
this was,
Yeah, I guess either way, even if my
I think
model's
he's
right,
just
you're not quite playing
completely.
Zobrist.
I think he's completely unplayable. I would never play the card in anything. If it's 1968, maybe you do play the card if doubles and triples are they're worth that much. The problem is, unlike real baseball, if it was 1968, people would also adjust to the environment with what they were playing, right? And I still think
You
it's
know,
depreciated a bit.
could you imagine 1968 in an environment where on top of that we add the whole thing where every reliever throws 100 out of the pen?
That would be extremely silly.
All right, so Zobrist,
1968,
what are we gonna give
every
him?
pitcher is Bob Gibson. I
Yeah,
mean, to me, it's an F. If you want to give it a D, you can. I don't think it's
I think I
remotely
gotta at
playable.
least give it a D for defense.
All right, all right.
All right, we'll go
Uh,
on here. We said we were going to be quick, and then we get stuck
we have
talking
not
about
been good.
exactly how bad the card is. So, all right, let's look at Mickey Lola's.
It's very important to get exactly how bad the card is, right? In terms of this card, I've had people say both things. I've seen people look at this card and go completely unplayable. I've seen people look at this card and go, "This card's crazy." I haven't perfectly average. Like, this is left-handed pitcher number 13 in gold for me. I think it's fine. If I perfect drafted it, I'm probably okay with perfect drafting it, but like, I don't know, I'm not dying to have it.
I've got it number nine out of lefties in gold. Well, probably 8. I'd probably bump it ahead of Rich Hill, say, because the stamina. But
Oh, interestingly, I don't know. I've had this discussion with JDA a few times. I'm like the lowest person on Rich Hill. I do not think that card is good. I think that card does better in observed data because it's only going twice through the order because its stamina sucks.
Could so I don't think this is. I think this is a perfectly playable card if you're stuck, but I think we actually see it pretty similar. So yeah, there is this control split. That's definitely a problem. I guess the other question I could ask is, would you consider running this out of the pen with that 92 curve and 85 sinker?
I mean, you could. It's a little lower velocity than you'd like, but I mean, it is a higher stuff card, right? So it'll do a little better out of the pen. The issue is, and Kazken 15 brings this up, right? Like, there's a lot of good gold lefty pitchers right now. There's a lot of them. And are you going to play gold lefty pitcher number 13?
If you are, you're not winning a lot of gold tournaments.
I mean, probably not. I mean, I think the ideal, level 0 build, I know you're a big fan of, like, level 13, but the ideal level 0 build is 5 gold starting pitchers, right?
Yeah.
And then you play all righties in the bullpen, and this card's just not on your team. So, I guess it's not good in that way, right? We have a bot in the chat if you'd like to ban him.
We do have a bot in the chat.
Well, you have a bot.
But I'm also a bot, so
Mm-hmm. You are the bot, yes.
Yeah, alright. I can ban him if I know how to ban him.
Just click on his name, and then you should be able to do it. You can also mod me, and I'll do it. But...
Alright. Aha. Ban.
You got him. There we go.
Alright.
Really put in the war and warbot.
And now I've learned how to do something. So see, it's an educational stream.
It kind of is. So yeah, I mean, he's not actively bad, but he's not good.
No, I think
so
maybe just give him like a C for like.
I'm okay with C.
He's playable,
let's move on.
but all right.
We're gonna do one of these cards in under 5 minutes.
All right, Reggie Smith. All right, wait, this is an easy card.
I hope it is.
Except I didn't put up Reggie Smith. I put up Reggie Sanders, who's much better than Reggie Smith. Here's Reggie Smith.
Yep.
What does this card do well?
Nothing. And I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, that's enough stats." It's compare it to Frank Baker, who's like +4 or 5 in every stat, and like is an okay gold card. I mean, I don't think this is like. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, would you ever play this in anything?
Not only would you never play it, but like, let's say you look at this as, let's say you looked at this as a silver card. Are you really going to play him in silver? Like, compare this to like. Whoops.
All right, I'm gonna do it, or I'm gonna punch it in real fast.
No, but just pull him up against this Elijah Green. Isn't Elijah Green just better at everything?
He is, but let's presume you cannot afford Elijah Green. Right?
Okay.
Let's take this Reggie Smith. I'm gonna make him a 69, and we're gonna run bronze real quick. Okay. And I assume he'll be good, so we'll do that. Yeah, he's great. I mean, he's like a slightly above average bronze card. Actually, he's a lot better than that. I was misreading my table. No, he's a great bronze card.
He's a great bronze card, but yeah.
He's like a little above average for average gold. I don't know.
Oh,
you might play him in silver.
Speaking of bronze cards, give me one moment, because I just remembered that I probably have a bunch of ineligible people in bronze only.
Oh, yeah. I mean, should I do that too? Are we going to take an intermission and build a bronze-only team real fast?
I don't think it's going to need much of an intermission, but I think I should just make sure I'm not winning the tournament anyway. It's a 256-team tournament. I just feel like I should actually put 26 cards in the build.
Yeah, I may not also have 26 cards in the build, so let's check. So, I actually have him a little bit better than Dink in right field, which is kind of crazy, considering Dink is a bronze card and that's a gold card, but...
Yeah, and it's not
You
even a
know.
low gold. At 85, he's not eligible for low gold. Um,
I don't know.
so is this a better F than George Davis or a worse F than George Davis?
I actually think it's better.
It's probably better. I think it actually think it is better than George Davis.
I think anything's better than George Davis.
I think we can give this one an F though. I think.
All right. Hey, why does my bronze only roster not have Dave McNally on it? I feel like
I
that's a
don't know.
significant.
Apparently, I do have 26 players, so I think that's all I need, and I do have Dave McNally, so I think we're good.
I'm just gonna put Dave McNally on my roster real
You know,
fast and then call it good. I
I'm-
heard that card's okay.
I'm no expert, but I'm gonna think Dave McNally's a yeah. Yep. I'm gonna say yes.
Yes is a good way to put it. I was writing a full righty rotation, but I don't know why he wasn't at least in the bullpen. So that's odd.
All right. Oh, actually, hold on. Let me just check to make sure I don't. I realized while I was checking that, because the problem is, so I guess they didn't have this other patch come out yet today, right? It's going to the one they said will download today.
Sometime.
But my most wanted feature is a scroll bar right here.
Oh, I know. It'd be very nice.
Because I always would like to know, well, do I have a slot? I do have a slot. I should enter something with the slot. Here we go. How about a daily diamond cap?
Oh, is it out in the Steam beta now? Because I didn't think it was out in the beta yet. So it's out, but it's public beta. So you'd have to opt into beta on Steam to get it.
I won't do it while we're on stream. I think that could go all sorts of ways.
Oh, congrats on making all 8. Did you make either of the drafts?
I made one draft and I messed up my counting. No, I messed up my counting. I could have made both drafts, and I forgot. I just mixed up whether I wanted to be in dailies or weeklies for half of the last week.
Oh, it's 8 now, but no scroll bar. But what about the people that are in 17 at once? Because we can do that now. What about
the problem
those
is, I need a darn scroll bar.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, all right. So we got another card coming up. It's Gary, not Gary Lucas.
No, not Gary Lucas. Not even. See, I still think they should claim that whole thing was intentional.
I think it's rather funny. 18 is the max. Oh, because the entry fee. I forgot about the entry fee, Zadafo. You're right. You could hit 18. Yes.
Yeah, I think the point is we do need a scroll bar. Also, if it's 8, I think that's probably going to depend on your screen resolution because,
Yeah, that's how a lot of it seems to be scaled.
Because, I think mine goes up to 5 on this resolution, but when I'm on my laptop with, crappy resolution, then I only get 4 or something.
Right. All right, so Gary.
Sure.
I have him number 2 VL and number 75 VR.
Okay, so I've got him absolutely the best VL.
Oh, do you not have Liberatore better? Not Liberatore. I'm sorry. Who's the card I have better?
Well, I'm sorry. I meant as a reliever. So, because Liberatore's.
Oh. Yeah. No. Well, if you do only relievers, but there's it's Segrist. Segrist is the card I have better. I have it better by quite a bit, I think, too.
Let me go back and find my VL again, but I don't think I did.
Kevin Segrist. Oh, Kevin Segrist has a lot lower control. You probably just don't like that.
I think I think the control is the difference.
He's a very silly card, though. If you have not seen him, it's worth looking at. I also have Segrist actually being better VR, which you might agree with, but
I think he is a little better VR. But yeah, I think the
Charles, look how silly that card is VL.
It's a good card VL. I like the homer prevention. I like the pitcher BABIP.
115 stuff to top it off. I mean, what's not to like? It's funny. He actually goes into the Gary mission. So I don't know. I don't see a world where you ever play Gary. Do you agree?
I would really like so there is actually a situation where I would do it, but it doesn't exist right now. So there are two rule changes that I've been pushing for some of the historical tournaments that I'm hoping we still might see at some point this year.
Oh, you one batter face him, and
And
like if
that's
they
one of
remove the
them.
three batter
Yeah.
rule.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think if you go back to a one batter rule, I think I'd get a lot more interested in this guy. Otherwise, I mean, it's tough because this is probably your best lefty specialist option. So I hate to really say it's completely unplayable, but it is probably completely unplayable.
Well, the thing is, like, would you play this as a lefty specialist, or would you play Gary Peters as a lefty specialist? And I don't even think it's comparable, right? Or even Hal Newhouser, like, you know what I mean? Like
But
there's other
I
cards
could
that
play
are,
those as starters.
I have Peters as starter 6, right? So Peters would be my bullpen lefty specialist right now. So,
Yeah.
yep.
Hmm.
So in that case, I just don't think it's close. Like, even if I have to go down the lefty specialist list quite far, there's probably a card that actually plays against righties as well. Like, pitchers can't be this splitty most of the time and get away with it. Right? Like, even like I'd rather play Billy Wagner every time than this card. Billy Wagner's way down the VL list, but he's okay VR. So, you know.
Yeah, I just sort of feel like there should be. I feel like there should be a way to play a card like this successfully. I agree that I can't think of one, and as a result, there's no build this card's going in. But
You can put him D. He could be D.
yeah, I mean,
He's
it's the kind of
definitely
thing where I
not a
really
C.
like that. I like that the card exists. And I want there to be a way to play a card like that because it's an interesting shape.
A few notes from chat. Izadafa, when I'm saying he's starting pitcher 6, I was referring to having 5 lefties better. Starters for me need at least 50 stamina. Tasken, if your goal is to win, make the PT Master Series, you should be trying to qualify for as many PTCSs as possible. There are plenty of people, even free-to-play players, who made every single one of them, right? So it's very doable.
Yeah,
right?
I'm a free-to-play player.
If you're in
and
gold,
hit 8.
if you're in gold, you should be playing gold through iron, probably. If your goal is to make the Master Series, for sure. And you can certainly play more than 4 a day as well if you're like really at your computer playing the game. You can play way more than that, I would think. It's a little harder as you go down, but certainly 4 is too low.
I think also there are different formats, and some of them you have to queue for like 15 hours, but even in gold and silver, there are some
Right,
formats,
if
you play, I think it's the live gold or the live silver, one of them, usually you can sign up almost at start time.
Yeah, exactly. Like the caps and the live ones, you can sign up a lot later, right?
So
I mean, Coach Ruffy, you don't really to spam dailies, quote unquote. You really only need to be on like 3 or 4 times a day. It's not that bad, right? Spamming quicks is pain, but
so yeah. I think the main thing about qualification is you have to kind of look out at the leaderboards and figure out what you're aiming for. So, for example, yes. I think it was the wild card format. You needed something around 10 points total. So, literally one semifinal appearance, one time in a month, and you never have to sign up for another wild card again if you're trying to qualify.
So some of them do, Coach Ruffy, but again, like silver and gold, like the bronze and the irons are always filling up because they're bronze and iron. But like,
well, here I'll just pull it up as an example. I'll pull up as an example what it looks like right now.
Right, you could just go and look at like some of these higher tier caps are accessible for all players if they're tight caps, right? Even plenty of silver and golds you could probably still join. The weeklies don't fill that fast,
So here, so taking a look right now as an example.
Right, you could join bronze floor cap is not too crazy. There's a diamond cap. There's an out of the park era cap. Well, that one, don't play that one. The Dead Ball to Boom is a fun one. There's the historical.
So another thing,
the low diamond cap is really accessible, right? Because it's Dead Ball, so you play all sorts of weird cards, right? Yeah.
So another thing to consider is if you want to play several of these, there are a few key cards that I think we'd recommend picking up. So let's just say, as an example, you can see right now that Dead Ball to Boom, 4 out of 64. This is something that often even fills in quicks, or at
Yep.
least very close to fill time. Low Diamond Cap, 7 of 64 will probably be similar. Okay, if you wanted to play like the late gold, that's a common quick format that you're probably signing up and keeping the slot most of the day, which is okay if you're
Yep.
doing it casually, but if you're trying to spam them, would get in the way. But what I was going to say is, let's say you're thinking about, okay, I want to compete in Dead Ball to Boom and Low Diamond Cap and a couple of these things that are easy to fill. Well, there are a couple cards that I think you should take a look at. Yeah, maybe Kidneys, this would be a good question. What would your couple key cards be? Because I think for these formats, there are low diamonds where you're only running, 2 or 3 pitchers in these formats. And there are a couple key cards that are eligible for both that you can play in low diamond and you want to run in Dead Ball to Boom that I think are. Go ahead. What are you thinking?
So a few things. Dental. I agree with Dental and Ruffy in the sense where um, the game doesn't tell you how the game works, and I understand, right? So how it does work, you see all those numbers next to the dailies. So if anything has the number 6, it qualifies for diamond. It's all diamond qualifiers. Quicks just don't qualify for anything. Weeklies are their own format. It's a little bit more straightforward this year, right? So like number 1 is an open tournament, number 2 is an iron tournament, things like that, right? Cap tournaments are really easy and accessible and actually better for new players because you need to spend less money on the game, right? The difference of like card values for caps and all that, most of the time you just try and build your starting roster and then you spend as little points as possible on your bench players. It's really not that hard. The problem is the game just never explains properly how to do it. And if you ever ask the AI to make a cap team, it's
Don't.
just terrible.
Just
right?
don't.
No. So it's really there's a lack of a guide rather than anything, but yeah, I mean, caps are like the best way for a player who doesn't have a lot of money to make money because the entry fee is so much lower than other tournaments. So, I mean, even just enter a few, look at some of the good rosters and figure out what they're doing and why, right? If you put a little bit more time in, you'd probably make a lot of money. And, I get that's not super casual friendly and that quicks are a lot harder this year. But certainly, in cap tournaments, there's some very easy to get started once you figure out the basics, right? And spreading around and not just playing one format all the time makes it a lot better.
I think I'd also recommend. So I think I'd also recommend spreading around for a few reasons. So one of them. So Kaz, can you mention? You're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket, which is gold.
Yeah.
I mean, Kidneys, feel free to tell me if you would disagree here. My sense is that gold right now is the toughest thing to compete in.
I would agree, and the reason being is that the gold quicks are the most profitable quicks, which means more people are drawn to play gold than their first.
And absolutely optimize their gold build, yeah.
Yep. So and I also have a gold spreadsheet out there for the public, which probably isn't helping.
Oh yeah, you want to
stick?
Feel free to stick a link in the chat if you want to.
Do I get timed out if in the chat if I put a link in?
If you do, I can fix it. If you tell me how to fix it.
You can also mod me, and then it won't time me out if you want to do it that way.
I can do that. How do I mod?
I promise I'll behave. You just slash mod space my name. It'll work.
All right, now we're all in trouble.
I've been granted emergency powers. Here. Discord, it's a cool place.
I'll also just say to anyone who's kind of trying to get started with one of these, like Coach Ruffy or Kazcan or just anyone kind of listening, feel free to just ping me on Discord, and I'm happy to help.
Yeah, me too. I answer like 30 messages about Out of the Park a day. There's a lot of people who are regulars in my DMs. I enjoy it, right? Say make PP about money. I'm sorry, when I'm talking about the game and I say money, I almost always mean PP. Yeah, no, I get it. No. You definitely like you Charles. If I'm correct, do you have PT plus? I don't remember.
I
Um,
decided to get PT Plus, and there were a couple reasons.
but that's the
Yeah.
only thing you've spent on this year, right?
Well, it's the only thing I've spent on, and I don't think it's been a big. Yeah. So in fact, what happened was I got a free copy of the game, and so I
Yep.
felt that to support the devs, I might as well at least get PT Plus.
Right. So Charles made every single PTCS, and obviously, well, that's a tournament, right? You missed the one draft. We talked about that, but like,
Because I can't.
you
Because I
can
can't count.
certainly,
Yeah.
exactly, you can certainly, play the game without putting a real life dollar into it and be a great player. Obviously, that's not casual friendly, right? But you kind of gotta, if you want to win things, you gotta put the time in or the money in or both, right? Like you can't, it's kind of a thing I talk about with people a lot, right? Like you can't just be good at the game and not do anything, right? So I don't like, there's a lot of work to put in, but I think caps are like the biggest way to make perfect points in the game right now, and just enter some and look at some top rosters and learn what they do, learn what players that are cheap play across formats, learn. Like the original question, Charles, was what cards would you put as staples in like different formats,
Or
right?
yeah, or at least if you were thinking about, let's say I have 25,000 points to spend, and I want to like do something that's going to make a difference in several of these formats. What can I do?
Yeah.
What can I do with something like 25,000 points, where that's an amount that you probably can get over the course of a week, between league
Right.
and ripping packs, even if you're not having a lot of success in tournaments yet.
So specifically not for like Deadball, but the Diamond Bob Allison is like a 10K card that I played in like, I don't know, 10 different formats when the year started, right? And that's really cool to me. Like, that's a card that I think a lot more people should have utilized going forward, right? And no, Big Chief, you're totally right. There's nowhere in the game that explains the tournament eras, that explains the PTCS or anything. You really have to be all over Discord to understand how the game works, and I think that's a major miss right now. But if you have questions, like, get in the main Discord, get in my Discord, I can post the link again, like, ask questions. People love to help in this community. It's great. The problem is, Coach Ruffy, is casual tournaments are really never going to be a thing unless, like, you literally, like, lock good players out of them. I don't know how you'd ever do that, right? Like, there's always going to be people trying to just beat up on other people in a format, right? It's hard,
Right. But I would also say that the difference between what we mean by a casual player, a lot of that is something that you'll pick up pretty quickly, I think, if you play caps. Because one of the things that's a really important skill at every level of this game is how much of an upgrade is this card. So, and this comes in at a lot of levels. It comes in at, should I try to chase this mission right now, or should I wait till it's cheaper? How much am I willing to pay for this card in the shop? And caps are another way of answering that question. You have a limited budget, in this case a budget of sort of overall points. Which are the cards that are going to be, most valuable? And so, Coach Ruffy, if you're interested in trying to figure out, some of this stuff, like, please feel free to message us on Discord. We're happy to help. I'm happy to see if I can help you get a couple good setups going.
And they also the kind of they pigeonholed themselves a bit this year, because the way the structure is set up is if they added more tournaments to bronze, it would fundamentally like ruin the entire PTCS structure, in my opinion. I don't think they can just do that. Obviously, them changing the quicks was a way to push people into the dailies and weeklies. I think that's okay. The problem is, not everybody likes change, and obviously quicks just aren't really good anymore, right? And that's, it's a hard thing. And then it's hard because there aren't enough bronze and iron dailies, and like I said, I don't think you can add more, right? So I'm not really sure what the solution is, but yeah, it's different, right? It's very different. So
Yeah. Right. We said this was going to be a quick stream, didn't we?
Well, we got through 6 cards and we decided to open a tournament roster, which was probably a mistake.
That was definitely a mistake, especially because it turned out it was actually complete. I got lucky. All right. Well, let's go back. So where were we?
We were on. We just
Lance
finished Gary.
Berkman.
We're about to do
Lance
Lance
Berkman.
Berkman, and I get a feeling we're not going to agree on him either because that's how every card has gone so far.
All right. Well, first off, you take a quick look at Lance Berkman, and the immediate response is that as long as only right-handed pitchers exist, this is an incredible card.
Right, and the problem is, like I said before, the gold meta, I'm sure you can agree, is very lefty.
It's very left-handed.
Heavy.
Yes.
So, in a different meta, I have this being the best gold hitter VR, right? Just in a vacuum. I'd play it over Casas. I would do that.
Yeah.
But I don't actually think you play him on a gold quick team right now. Which is kind of crazy. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I think I did put him on my latest open gold build.
I think he needs to be on every single gold quick team for a very simple reason.
Pinch hitter?
Yeah, which is you don't play enough games in a gold quick for fatigue to build up at all the outfield positions, so you can afford to have a pinch hitter on the roster, and this is probably your most important pinch hitter in the game.
Yeah, I mean...
But I agree he doesn't start.
So I'll double back. In a do or die gold, he should be on the team because you should have cut one of your pitchers, right?
Yeah.
In just like a big tournament that's like open gold, he's borderline. I think the card has to be like B or A tier at least. It's probably A tier just because if the meta shifts, he's the best hitter in the game, right?
So let me ask a little more controversial question then.
Okay.
Low Diamond has more righties. Would you consider that?
Let me just double check.
Because you do have more righties coming in there.
No, I mean he would be the best first baseman VR. I think the question you have to ask is, do you want to hedge a little bit more and play Casas, right? Because Casas is a lot better VL.
So I actually don't see them as competing. Oh, so Big Chief, or we'll finish this and then Big Chief. I'll give you a better idea of the qualification.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, in Berkman and left field in Low Diamond. Yeah, because so every place I have Berkman, I also have Beatty showing up, but you can't play Beatty at 4 positions. So I think Berkman, I'd play in left field or first base.
I want Beatty I think I want Beatty at second base.
No, he doesn't play second base. He doesn't play second.
Do I mean? Sorry, I'm thinking.
Third base.
I must mean
no,
third.
He plays third. Absolutely, he plays third. Yes.
So I think I want him at third.
Yeah.
So for me, Berkman isn't a first baseman. He's a corner outfielder because it's so much harder to find corner outfield options in gold right now than it is to find first base options. So I don't think Casas is actually the comparison here. I think you're running both of them if you have a chance to ever face a righty. But I really do want to play him probably in left, depending on what you're doing with Strang. You could also play him in right.
So the issue with me saying I want to play this card in left field in gold is I think... Well, in gold
if you ever see a righty starter.
Oh, if I'm seeing righty starters, then yeah. Even right now, though, I'm a big Miguel Vargas fan. I think that card is excellent in gold left field.
Yeah.
Is that enough? Maybe, I don't know.
But Vargas is a righty.
Yeah, but Vargas hits righties. Better than he hits lefties. So... I think this card has to be basically A tier.
I think it's A tier.
So high.
I think the card right now probably is closer to B tier, but would become S tier if the right cards get released. And this is one of the few cards that may actually get better with future releases instead of worse.
Oh, absolutely agree. Yeah. Eventually, as Adolfo is agreeing, eventually there'll be right-handed starting pitchers and that it's in every build. Yeah, I mean, no question. So I think it has to be A because it's probably S in a month or two.
If it, depending on how
Which
long
is
it
really
lasts,
funny.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think this is an outfielder rather than a first baseman. I think Casas is still your first base option. So to answer the question that we had come up about PTCS qualification, just to quickly summarize for anyone that still is trying to see how this works, you'll notice that a bunch of the tournaments that are available each day have these asterisks like 1 through 7. So there are 10 different ways that you can qualify for PTCS. There are these 7 groups of daily tournaments that are each roughly grouped around, for example, all of the 2s have something to do with iron cards. You know, here's a historical iron, another iron best of 5, and so forth. You know, the 5s, you know, here are gold cap, another gold, and there's a live gold. In addition, there are weeklies, these 128 team tournaments, and there are 2 ways you can do this through perfect drafts. One through these daily perfect drafts that have 64, and the other through the weeklies that have either 124, 128 or 256, which reminds me I should sign up for a draft. Apparently I should sign up for 2 drafts. I must have done very poorly. Okay, I have now signed up for 2 drafts. Okay, so at the end of each month, and there's one period that just finished. This is the first week for the next period. You can look at, you can look at one of these. So you can see each week there's a weekly leaderboard. So here was last week's leaderboard, and you get points based on all of your finishes. They go up. I guess for these 64 team ones, it maxes out at 20 points if you win it, and then 15 and 10 and so forth. And if you're in the top 10, you get an extra bonus. So you'll get some extra PP as a bonus at the end of the week. But more importantly, when you add up overall 4 weeks, if you're in the top 128, which, is there no scroll bar on this? To drag? There is no scroll bar on this.
No, there's no draggable scroll bar. You can search for your name in the top right, but you have to actually.
You actually have to know what your name. Okay, that's unfortunate. But the point, what I wanted to do was to look at someone who's around 128 to show you what you needed in order to, qualify.
It's really not that many points depending on what format.
Depends on the format. I just wanted to cut down the.
I don't think there's an easy way to do it.
Here you go. So in this case, you can see 16 points was 119th, and 11 points missed. So somewhere around 15 points. So literally one diamond tournament where you made the finals and got 15 points, total over 4 weeks, would have been enough to get you into the top 128 and then qualify. And there are some formats that are a lot harder. I think iron, for example, I think it was a more competitive thing to reach the cutoff, if I remember correctly. I think I just barely made the cutoff in this. Yeah, I just barely made the cutoff with 41 points for iron.
Well, like we said, all you had to do is reach 3rd through 4th place in wildcard, and you would have qualified for the big deal, right?
Yeah. So if you want to try it, I think these are fun tournaments to try. The prizes are generally bigger than the quicks because instead of getting standard packs, you either get tournament choice packs, which have hopefully some nice cards in them, or you get sort of better than standard packs. You can get a gold, historical, or diamond packs. And you get to build with some different constraints, which is fun as well. So anyway, and again, if anyone is interested and want some help getting set up, please ask us. So let's we totally were going to speed this up. All right, here we go. Let's do an easy one. Let's do Ted Simmons.
Yeah, I mean, just F tier. Do we even need to talk about it? Just pull up Dick Dietz on the screen so chat can understand why it's an F tier card. Because Dick Dietz actually has better defense, and then just look at the bat, right?
Yeah. And I don't
You know,
think
it's not.
I don't think Dietz is a card you want to play either. But the point is Simmons.
Well, there's some of the formats as you go older, catcher ability matters less. The exception is dead ball, where it matters a ton in dead ball. I don't know why. It's like they turned it back on or something. Um, but yeah, no, I mean you'll never play Ted Simmons ever in anything. We can move on. I think.
I think so. So I think
Another.
what's happening in dead ball is they seem to have done this weird thing where they wanted to have a sharp break between eras.
Yep.
So this is why, for example, there are years where you can run 3 starting pitchers, and then suddenly the next year you need to run 5 starting pitchers, and there's nothing in between.
Yeah, I mean when people like because the cutoff is 1960, right? And there were people who like up to 1969 were still running 3-man rotations in real life, right? So, no, I get it.
Yeah, but what happened is basically, because because there's this sharp shift. What it seems like they've done is to implement historical stuff via a combination of 2 switches. So first they do something to modify the era. Then within the era they say relative to the era this is how important things are. And the weird thing about dead ball is that means if you're doing like a dead ball in 1919, it's an extreme outlier compared to like 1876, which is an extreme outlier in the opposite direction. And so I think that leads to a few weird effects in dead ball that don't show up in the other eras.
Yeah, no, I agree because they're kind of like almost double leaning into it in like kind of a sort of weird way. Like I saw your explanation, I thought it makes total sense, right? But very clearly, it matters way too much. Well, it matters way too much in an environment it shouldn't matter. But in general, like you could probably play Dick Dietz in 1930 and it's fine, right?
But even if you wanted a pure bat as catcher, I mean, wouldn't you rather run Hoyles? Wouldn't you rather run? Would you rather run? Maybe you wouldn't. You'd almost rather run Bennett with the extra eye. No, I'm saying compared with Simmons. I meant.
Oh, with Simmons, yeah. I mean, there's a million better cards. With Dietz, I think Dietz is the best bat without a glove. I think.
So I'm curious.
So that's why I bring him up.
Do you have Tettleton playable?
In silver, yeah, not in gold. I know some people do. I would have Ted Simmons as the best catcher in iron for Izadafo, who asked the question, but he would be completely unplayable in bronze. But he is the best catcher in iron.
So Wildcat, the game doesn't give you a direct way of seeing the effect of different eras. You can approximate it just by looking at historical stats and comparing them with the modern era, and that comes at least sort of close. And if you're thinking about how to build things for different eras, so if you want to know, say, how many starting pitchers or something, then the Nerds United E6 group has an excellent set of streams that we highly recommend, and maybe ask in the Discord and someone can post a link to a breakdown that they did of different eras, which is a really good guide. Everything they say about the era guide is good information.
Yep, Extaforus, Aster, and Durden made that last year, and most of it seems to be very true this year, and it's the best breakdown anybody has.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I have Zunino #1 in iron. Obviously, it's not a real iron model.
I'm playing Zunino. I think as high as maybe not silver anymore. I definitely was till recently.
I mean, I have him in every single cap team I make, right?
Yeah.
No, he's excellent. In bronze, I had Simmons behind Dink and Petway, which seems right. Yeah, I don't know. All right, we can go on. This is F, no question.
All right, F tier. What do we got next? Let's find a better card here. How about Robin Roberts? So here we go. Robin Roberts was the silver Robin Roberts. So the silver Robin Roberts is one of the best like pound for pound cards in the game. The gold Robin Roberts has lost a little bit of control and a little bit of pitcher BABIP. And a bunch of stuff, and in return has picked up some home run prevention.
Yeah.
So there's one question I have about this card,
Uh,
which is where do you get 114 stamina?
I don't know. It's the highest number we've had in the past 2 years.
Last year it seemed to
Robin
just peak at
Roberts.
110, didn't it?
There was a few 111s, and I think there was one 112 last year. Unless I'm thinking of a few 110s and there was one 111. It's one of the two. There was the highest number was 111 or 112 last year. But we also see much higher hold runner numbers. Yeah, Ed Walsh is 112. That's who I remembered. Last year, hold runner capped around 100. This year, there's guys with like 115. So I don't know. This card, I don't know.
I
What
think
to
it's
say
just
about this one,
significantly worse
Charles.
than the silver. I think you've
So they
taken the
the-
things that were important about the card and made them worse, and
Right,
you've
so
added
they-
something that doesn't help them so much.
Yeah, I mean, they took a card that has really low P home run, but it's like at the end of the playable range, right? And it has really good everything else, and they lost everything else that was good about the card. They reduced it all to give it an insignificant amount of P home run. I mean, it's just terrible, right? It's
Yeah,
not.
I think this is just a worse card than the silver.
Yeah, it's not remotely playable, and because it's worse than the silver, it's like, would you play it in bronze? And it's like, yeah, I guess so, but I don't
I
like.
think we can
you
give
know?
that one an F. So
that's enough.
Supias kind of asking if you saw where we were going through the list of tournaments before, you can just enter any of the dailies you want to. If you're asking how to join in the PTCS tournaments, then you don't get to sign up for those. These are things you qualify for based on being in the top 128 on leaderboards over the course of a month. And if you're in the top 128, then, then when they create them, you just get put in.
EVC, you're coming into this stream and making decisions off of small amounts of data. Do you know where you are? Hello? We didn't agree on the Kenley. I like the gold one better. Charles likes the silver a little better. But the gold should never have a worse BABIP allowed. His BABIP rating is better.
Yeah.
So, data. Hello. Get some
All right.
data.
Let's find a card we can play. How about this Chipper Jones?
Yeah, this card's F tier. I mean, it's just as bad as the Roberts and the Simmons, and I don't know where you'd play it. The double play is so low, it can't bump. Yeah, this card. Again, the silver chipper is so good, right? We talked at the beginning of
so the
stream,
silver chipper is
like
excellent.
5 hours ago, we talked about how you'd play silver chipper in gold VL, and this
Not
card
anymore.
is better. You're right. This card is just better.
Not just a little better. This card is much, much better.
There's no such thing as the hot hand. It doesn't exist. The gold's home run rate is much lower, yes, but BABIPs are not home runs. Home runs are balls out of play. They are not BABIPs. They are BABOPs, right? A batted ball out of play. The fire emojis are not predictive. They're reflective, right? Yeah, this card is dumb. I mean, you probably just play it both ways, especially in this meta.
So the funny thing is that fire emojis are slightly predictive, but in a stupid sense.
Well, they are if you're watching a game highlight. Then they're predictive.
Because what happens is that they decide whether the player's on fire, including the game that you're watching.
Yes, EVC, this would be an excellent spot to use a troll face. You watched my breakdown on Zoomer memes yesterday.
Yeah.
You would use a troll face here.
But it includes the game you're watching, so that means if you look at a highlight and you see a player is on fire, because it includes that game, there's actually a good chance that they're going to get a hit.
Right, and if they're cold, they're certainly not getting a hit because they're still in the slump, right?
Exactly.
But it's. I know IROC this is memeing as well, but for the other players who don't know, it is reflective. It is not predictive, right, at all.
All right. So Chipper, let me ask the question this way. I think we can agree that this is an absolutely top tier bat. I've got him very narrowly as the top overall bat in gold.
Okay.
Number two, very, very close is Bill Joyce.
I actually don't have Joyce to Chipper close. Again, I think the difference is probably how we're using the Woba weights right now.
Yeah, 'cause
I have it.
You know that I can't turn down that much eye.
I know, but Chipper for me is 30 BADR and Joyce is 23. It's not close to me, right?
Okay, well
No, DRC Fire makes sense because DRC was watching the highlights after they've already happened, right? So, DRC Fire was a real deal. That's the cool part.
Yeah. It's a real deal because Fire is kind of peeking ahead a little bit and saying in retrospect the player's on fire.
I don't know that reference, Chalupa Pants, but that's very funny.
And I love Chalupa Pants is just like a handle, by the way.
It's such a great name. I've seen you in a few chats now. It's an excellent name. But I haven't listened to any of the DaBaby's music, and I don't think I'm missing out. I mean, he's S tier.
Yeah, but I guess the question I was going to ask, I'll ask this question though, because I think this is the valuable discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So in Chipper and Joyce, you've got two excellent third base bats that are somewhat splitty, but just overall excellent, and neither's a good defender.
Yeah, but
and there are
I
a bunch of other
being...
DHs in gold. So my question is, are you platooning these bats, or are you trying to run Chipper both ways?
Right now, I'm running Chipper both ways because lefties are getting a lot more innings on good teams. If Berkman is better, then I'm more inclined to play Joyce, but I still think Chipper overall is a better card even in that meta. Yeah. Because Berkman, I mean, like, Chipper is, like, only, like, 3 BADR below Joyce VR. Joyce's cool thing is Joyce is, like, you know, a lot better either way, right? But
and I guess this,
he's pretty splitty VL.
I guess this should completely kill and I guess this completely kills Jim Tomei then.
Kinda. Like, in my world, I have Tomei barely better than Chipper VR, but then, like, VL, it doesn't matter. I mean, my thing would just say play Tristan Casas at third base, which is a fun argument.
Oh, nice. We got an Acuna drop. That nice.
Acuna's very good. In League, it's a lot harder EVC, right? Because obviously defense is way more important. But yeah, I mean, in gold tournaments, yeah, Tomei is probably dead. Batista's 100% dead now, in third base at least.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I F tier card.
No, I think we got a clear S tier. It's just the discussion is just kind of how much you want to play him. All right, Eddie Murray. So
I don't know. Like, I have Eddie like number 11 VR. The problem is number 10 is David Ortiz.
Not just that, but there are a couple bats in there that are super cheap that even like.
Oh yeah.
Am I the only one that looked at running Mike Epstein?
No, I played Epstein at the start of the year. Epstein is like just below Howard, right?
Yeah,
he's a little splittier.
He's super splitty, but look at this bat.
Yeah, VR, he's great. He's very good. So this card is probably D tier. No, it's got to be F tier.
I think it's just unplayable. Yeah, I think it's just unplayable.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in the interest of moving on, see, we said we were gonna do this quickly.
No, we weren't, Charles.
We said we we're gonna try.
We weren't. We did try. We failed.
Because I thought we were gonna have to fill time in talking about live spec or something, or you know.
Oh yeah, fill time. Yep. We'll fill time, all right. Let's talk about the PTCS cards. Yeah.
Sure. We'll get back to live spec if the chat asks us later. But I think everyone's getting their 5 drops on this stream. All right.
I think we have them.
Let's take a look at some PTCS cards and just kind of ask.
I feel like
how much
also,
do you like?
if you want to talk about live spec, it should be after I leave. I have some takes on live spec. I don't know if I'm allowed to say on stream. So yeah, maybe you can do that part yourself. Ken Harrelson, you know, this card really was great on my eye test. Like I tested this card, I'm like, wow, this card's crazy, and then I put it in the model, and the model was like, no, this card's not that good. Like, and yeah, it's got big numbers, but it's like a slightly worse Hack Wilson that hits right-handed pitching only, and like, I don't know. I mean,
The card this reminds me of is Jeff Burrows, and I can never actually find a place to play that card.
oh, I play Jeff Burrows probably too much. I kind of like Jeff Burrows.
I keep wanting to play Jeff Burrows, and I can't find a place to play Jeff Burrows.
You know what? Isadafo raises a great point. I'll comment on the live update when Out of the Park comments on the live update. There we go. All right. Ken Harrelson, I mean, you played in low gold? Is that the question? He's 83, right? So he's a low gold.
He's a low gold.
Let's just fact-check myself here. Low gold, right field. No, because I'm gonna play Sal Frelick instead. You could do it. You could do it. No.
No, I just don't see it. No. So I don't think it's a horrible card. I think it,
Yeah,
this is
the
kind of card that, if he were eligible for silver, he'd be an incredible bat, but just the step up even to low gold is too big.
No, I think this card could have been a silver, actually, which I know a lot of people would be like, huh? But, like, he's comparable kind of with a bat. He's, like, in between Berkman and Ortiz, right?
Yeah.
And I think he would be an excellent 79, and he's probably too weak as an 83. So he's close, he's not quite it. Yeah.
So give him like maybe it's like a D tier card. I mean, there are places you could think about it, but you're just not excited.
Right. All right. I don't even remember this John Smoltz.
Because I think the other problem is that everyone who's getting one of these PTCS cards tends to have a pretty full build.
I mean, you could win him with bronze cards, and then maybe you play him on your low gold team, but it's kind of unlikely, right?
So, all right, John Smoltz.
All right.
He got a lot of control.
He's got nice stuff and home run, and then there's another number there, Charles. What number is that number?
That yellow one that.
Is that the most important number on any pitcher right now? Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, probably.
Probably. Are we not playing perfect cards because they have a similar pitcher BABIP number?
Yeah. So I don't think I have this card as a top 50 reliever.
Wait. But Isadafo says 97 sack bunt, so he gets an S for sack bunt.
He gets an S for sack bunt, but unfortunately he probably gets an F for lack of fielding.
I mean, lack of fielding is certainly a fair evaluation. I'm just gonna fact check myself to make sure he doesn't come up in my top 124 pitchers in a gold environment.
I can look further than 50 down if you want.
No, we're okay. I didn't hit him at 125, so I think we can give him an F and move on.
All right, Virgil Trucks.
Virgil. Oh, Virgil would be. I'd like Virgil if he was like a gold card. He's not a gold card.
Maybe I mean, the problem is a gold card. Compare him with, let's say, Slim Jones. Is that He's
got a lot more stuff than Slim Jones. Though.
I think a lot more stuff, but but Jones is less splitty, has a ton more pitcher BABIP, has more control.
I have them being prevention. I have this card slightly better than Slim. Obviously, he's more of a reliever because he's splitty. But no, I think this card's okay. The problem is when I put him in low diamond. Let me just filter the starting pitcher to give him a fair.
When you put him in low diamond, it's not close.
He's like right-handed starter number 12, and then we're certainly just not playing him, right? So.
Yeah, I'll run low diamond real quick to check, but I think I had him even a little lower than that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just right-handed starter. If I add in the left-handed
just right-handed starter. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a number 21 then, just as overall low diamond starter. There's a lot of gold cards above him.
Yeah, he just misses the top 25 for me, but it's like around there.
Yeah. So I mean, we both agree it would be a good 89. It's not a good 93.
And he definitely loses some points for the nickname not being Fire.
Dude, fire trucks would be an Dude, if he was fire trucks, would Rube Waddell chase him off the field? Right?
Yes, there you go.
That's an incredible story. If you guys don't know about some good old timey baseball lore, do some reading on like a Rube Waddell biography online. That guy was quite a character.
So I'm thinking we give him maybe we give him an F for fire.
F for not fire truck. If he was an actual fire truck, he'd get S tier.
Yeah.
Are we gonna raid into EBC's Monday afternoon?
Hey! I just want to point out that for the first time, I successfully guessed all 12 cards on stream this week.
Me too. In fact, I actually guess them right every week. He just refuses to give me my prize. Adolfo says his nickname is actually Fire Truck. Are we just? Did you make a joke and it was actually the real thing?
Did I make? I didn't. I definitely intended that as a joke.
I'm not finding it. Let me just see again. Oh, and this one specifically? No, come on, work with me.
I guess I can't see that in the
Fire.
card shop.
Oh, it is Fire! His nickname is Fire! Let's go!
Alright, you know what? In that case, I think we can upgrade him to an F for fire.
F for Fire! We did it! Yep. Thanks, Adolfo, for the fact check real quick. I love it.
That can't have been his... that wasn't his real nickname, though, I don't think.
I mean, they changed the database this year. Like, a lot of guys' names changed this year.
Okay, the one I was disappointed in is we got a Dr. Strangeglove card, and we didn't get the Dr. Strangeglove nickname.
Dude, well, I'm glad we got Death to Flying Things on Bob Ferguson. No, his name is Fire Trucks on Baseball Reference. That is his nickname. Actually, I should check very quickly on a specific live card that somebody gave a nickname based off something I did, and it is not in Out of the Park. They deny me. But if you go on Baseball Reference, he is called the Silver Strider, which is pretty cool. So, all right. Hornsby?
Hornsby. So,
Hornsby.
That's a lot of gap power.
I know you're a gap power believer right now. I am not.
Absolutely a gap power believer. The rest of the card is tougher. However, I think there are a couple things this card does benefit from. And the main one is there aren't a ton of second base options that are out there at the diamond level, although there are a couple excellent perfect ones. The problem, of course, is Volpe.
I was going to say, like, if your assessment is Volpe plays second base, then you never play this card. Right?
Yeah. And the problem
if your assessment is not that, I actually have him... He's a lot better VL than VR.
Yep.
But, you know, his competition is like Jackson Merrill, probably.
So Fredeno Hijinks asked, does the gap power make up for overall power? And the answer is, Kidneys made the point earlier in the stream that because we're in a difficult environment for people to score without home runs, the difference between a single and a double maybe isn't as large as it would be in modern baseball. And Izadafo was saying he was finding the same thing in his data.
Right.
So if that's true, the gap power would be a little bit less valuable. I think it goes the other way, because at least in 1968, which is the closest actual data we have, it did go the other way. So it's not really clear.
Well, like I said, 1968 though has a way lower run environment than what we're actually in, right?
Yes, it
does. People have adjusted, and I think that difference is different. And that's right. That's the question, Izadafo. Like, I actually would rather play a different card at shortstop in this card at second. But like, yeah, you have to play Volpe somewhere. Also, so Dental Jinx gap power is like exclusively, is this single a double, right? That's exclusively what it does.
Or triple.
Then speed. Yeah. Well, but then that's speed saying is I don't think gap power makes straight triples, right?
Yes, it makes extra base hits. I mean. Yeah.
Right, and this year it's not really speed makes triples, it's their historical triple rate is the triple rate. Though Alex did explain that speed can make any non-hit into a hit, like an extra base, right?
You know what?
So it could make it could make a triple into an inside the park home run or a single into a double as well, actually.
You know what I'd really like to see then? So one of the things Spore seems to have done this year is to be willing to use really extreme versions of single season stats.
Yep, take them
And
at face value, which is very cool. It's so
which
different,
is
for
cool, but
sure.
here's what I'm wondering. Um,
Okay.
there are a couple hidden ratings that potentially could be incredibly extreme. And I'm thinking
Uh,
about the one year that Don Baylor had, what was it, almost 20 hit by pitches or something.
oh, there's bigger seasons than that. Huey Jennings had like 40 or 50 in a year one year. You could do that. We tried to get one. We got one as a community request card a few years ago. It did not seem to get hit by pitch it more often than than the average card. And I know there's a hit by pitch rating, but whatever they put in for it wasn't drastically more, right? Is there a CI rating? Ellsbury would be funny. I don't know if there's a CI rating.
I
That would
don't
be
know,
very funny.
but I do remember the Sox played a game earlier this season
Okay.
in which there were like 3 CI.
Yes. Yes, they did.
And I don't think I've ever seen, maybe I don't think I had seen 3 total, like in all my years of watching baseball live before that.
There was one year I think Ellsbury had like 8 or 11 or something. It was very bizarre. Um, yeah.
As for
I,
second,
he
yeah.
was
So
like,
so I would. Oh, that's right. There was one declined because the outcome of the play was better than.
oh, that's funny. So there was 4 technically in a game. That's very fun.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was a beautiful heads up play because like this is the sort of
Yeah.
thing that. If you're a player that's also umpired, you do this stuff instinctively, but players who haven't umpired tend, so what happened was runner on first, CI is signaled, ball goes into the outfield, the runner from first just, comes through second and takes third, because if he's out at third, they're going to take the CI, so you might as well take a
Oh,
free
so you
shot
just
at it.
go. Yeah, it doesn't matter, right?
And
Oh,
then
that's smart.
and then
Who
no one
was
really
that
paid
runner?
it. I think it was Kike.
That sounds like him. He's a very good baseball player.
And then the outfielders didn't, they couldn't quite figure out what was going on, and so they sort of gave up on the play, and then they kept the result instead.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's heads up baseball. It's
Yeah.
good to see. It's the opposite of, like, the Javi Baez experience. It happens to him a little more than other people, but it does happen. I saw somebody hit a ball that looked like a home run, and it hit the top of the wall, which I guess in that ballpark is not a home run, and it came back, and he got thrown out at second. It was very funny.
Yep.
It was a ground ball to third, throw to first, but the first baseman didn't realize you could decline and came off the bag, and then Kike went to third. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was something like
It was one
that.
of the first, well, it was on the first baseman and Kike then, because Kike made a heads-up play. I think this has to be B tier. Maybe it's A tier? I don't know.
Yeah, I
It's
think
good.
so. If not for Volpe, this would be my new top second baseman in Diamond. But the problem is the gap between this and
Yes.
Volpe I've got is like almost 3 wins.
Oh, I don't have it that high. I have it 1.5. No, it's more. It's almost 2 at second. Looking at shortstop, the problem is Volpe to my next shortstop is like 1.1. And then Volpe, I actually have behind somebody at third base, which I know people are going to think is crazy, but I do have that.
Because the thing is also that Volpe, so this has 81 range. Just
I think Volpe is 70
Volpe
something.
is 78,
I don't know if he's
so they're
higher.
close. But Volpe gets a lot of value from the base running too.
Oh, I mean, I have that in there as well. My stealing stuff though is always way lower than everybody else's because I hand make the WSD.
Okay, then that's probably where our gap
Right.
is. But the point is,
'Cause
Volpe is a
I'm
lot better if
probably-
you're playing him at second.
Yeah, and I probably have Volpe as like not stealing at all on a positive rate, but his base running is awesome. So
Yeah.
don't discount that. Base running seems more important this year than previous years. It seems very powerful. So I guess he's A tier then, because I think you still play him if you're playing Volpe. Maybe not.
Maybe what you do is if you have Volpe, maybe you do a split platoon where you play him versus left at second, you play Volpe versus right, and you play Volpe at third or something the other way.
The problem is versus left, I have Volpe being way closer, and I'd rather play him at second VL than I would anywhere
Yeah,
else.
probably.
Actually, because I want Walker or Chipper at third, and then like Bregman is pretty comparable at short, which I know is a really silly sentence,
So
but
is
it's what I'm saying
so
right now.
no, Bregman's great. So is this more a B tier card then? I mean, it's tough because if not for Volpe, I would like this card a lot more.
The problem is if you're platooning Hornsby, I don't think you ever actually play him. So I think he has to be second base both ways. And then you're saying
So that's the
shortstop is
problem.
Volpe both ways.
So then he's
and
then
that,
he's then this is really just not that good of a card, unfortunately.
I think it's got to be B tier though still
Yeah.
because Volpe is 260 grand right now. Now this card will probably still cost 50 or 100, but hey,
Yeah.
it's better.
Well, okay.
You
So
think-
would you
okay,
rather
so
have
it
this
also
card, or
says-
would you rather have this card, or would you rather have our next option?
Oh gosh.
We've got a PTCS Cal. So I know
Let me-
they
let me
announced
look at
that
what
the
you said.
Yaz. I know they announced that the Yaz they showed on stream when it originally was the wrong one. I do have to wonder if they should double check the Ripken.
It's funny too because this year on Cal Ripken's card is the year where he has the most WAR of I think any shortstop ever. I think this is the 10 WAR season or whatever. I'm gonna fact check it right now. What year's on the Ripken?
91.
91. So in 91, this was the 11 and a half WAR season where he led the league in offensive and defensive WAR, playing every single game.
Okay, so I will say that this is a good glove for a bat for a shortstop. The problem is this is not a good bat for a glove for a shortstop.
Run up by me again.
I'm saying if he's a bat for a shortstop, the glove is good.
Okay, so
The problem
this
is
card,
the problem is that as a glove for a shortstop, the bat is still not that good.
well, and the other problem is he's absurdly splitty too, right? Like this card is not playable VR ever, right?
So
even
okay,
close?
so there's one thing that you could do that would make this card playable for me. That would
Okay.
be totally historical. If you told me that this card could play every single game, so that I wouldn't have to have a backup shortstop, I think I'd play this card.
You know what's funny? In previous games, Charles, I think it was 22. So I don't know if you were like playing at this point seriously enough. We got some big Cal Ripken card, and cards do have fatigue ratings and out of the park, right? Like how often they can play. Some are slightly more than others. The Ripken card was like the lowest fatigue rating of any card. Like it could only play like 120 games a year at shortstop.
This was
very
like
clearly-
was that I think that was the first year I played, and I started partway through, but I think that was the year that they had the Maddox that like didn't have a good glove.
Yes, we have had one or two of those.
But yeah, okay. So this card is not playing over Willie Wells at short. It's not playing over Volpe at short. Gunnar Henderson,
I mean-
Tony Phillips. It's not
Yeah,
playing
I
over
could
John
list-
Valentin, A-Rod. It's not playing over Bregman, who you mentioned. It's not
I
playing
could
over
list-
Digo. Go ahead.
So many cards, I would rather play it short than this. I think the greater, I would also play Valentine over this.
Yeah,
I
I'd
think
play
the
Valentine.
greater issue is that if you compare this glove to Willie Wells' glove, this card is like fractions better, right?
But
Just
Willie
barely
Wells
anything.
actually has an enormous bat.
And then if you compare the bat, it is a light year difference. And if you compare the base running, Wells is also twice as good by my metric of a base runner.
Well, let
And then
me give you a card that I don't. Oh, wow, someone apparently made one of these. I was going to say I wasn't sure I had seen one in the game.
This card is excellent. It's been very underplayed. It's a shame it's in a choice pack. I would play this card over Wells.
I was going to say I wouldn't play this over Wells, but this is a card I'd play over Ripken.
Actually, I don't have that being true, but I think something's wrong because I would have had it true earlier.
Because you get the 98,
you know what,
you get the 98 range again, but this card also can play other infield positions, and the bat's probably a little bit better because it's less splitty and he walks a lot.
I would think the bat VL is a lot worse. The Bat VR is probably about the same. The glove's about the same, but this card plays second and third. So like, I don't know.
So Spore said Ripken was a good card.
And the correct card, yes.
Okay, well,
which is I think is
the correct card. I believe
right?
him on. I'll just say that our models disagree with his, and in principle, his model should be better because he's getting to work directly, with the engine and the way it does stats. But everything that I'm seeing about how the game engine works says this is not going to be a playable card.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I would agree with you, right? Like, they have access to things and they know the game better than any of us ever could, right?
Yeah.
And so, in general, I would defer if they say something is close. The problem is it doesn't look remotely close, right? And everybody who has data could tell you that Ripken card is not a good card, right? And so it's, maybe their tool is better than our tool, and the way the game is working, like, I don't know. You have him third between Phillips and Bartel.
Huh.
But where are Wells? Where's Wells though? Do you not have Wells that high? I would think Wells is better than all those cards.
I think the comparison with Wells shouldn't be close. Like, Wells just feels like he's better. Okay. But also as an example, there was it's expensive, but this Gunnar Henderson, like 83 range at short, and then
so
Gunnar's bad side is better than Ripken's good side.
Well, yeah, but so here's the thing, right, Charles? A lot of people have defense meaning a lot of different things, because I think almost everybody would agree that the game zone rating is wrong, right? Would you agree the game zone rating is just wrong, right?
Yes.
So I think maybe if we're talking in the context of not this suppressed BABIP world, right? And then we're talking about the game ZR is also wrong. Maybe Gunner's just not a playable shortstop, right? Because of the defense, So if we talk about it that way, I could see Wells 1, Phillips 2, Ripken 3, Bartel 4.
Okay,
I could
but here's the problem. I've got his WOBA as being about the same as this Pee-wee card.
Interesting.
Because the I is just worth a lot for WOBA. I mean, this is like 60 points of I or something.
Wait, no, it's not that much I, is it?
Yeah, what is he? 101 I here.
Ripken is 60 VL. 60 VL. Just ignoring VL.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I meant overall. So 48. All right. So it's 53 points of I.
Yeah. You don't use VR at all. What do you model, Smokey? Like, how are you modeling defense, right? Are you doing like base game sims and modeling runs saved? Because I think, yeah, I mean, I think it's fair if you're doing alternative defensive methods to say this card is like number 3 or 4 versus lefties, and then it's like really bad versus righties, right? I think that's a fair statement. The problem is, should the second tier PTCS card be a shortstop that just isn't good? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think Willie Wells will be a much better bat. But yeah, that problem is I still think even if you're going glove first, I think there are going to be other glove-heavy options that probably beat the Cal out.
There's not a... I mean, I don't have there being a lot. Like, I would certainly have Cal, like, number 3 or 4 VL with going glove options, right? So, I can see it.
I mean, the problem, like, is the card... I mean, I do have the card ranked higher, but is the bat really that much better than Pop?
I don't even have Pop showing up.
Neither do I. But I'm just to bring the bat up. Is the bat actually better than Pop?
All right. So in a gold environment, Charles, I have him as 15 Batar. Okay. So if I make Pop appear here, can I do that? Actually, is that a thing I can even do at this point?
I mean, if Pop had like more than 0 sack bunt, of course. I think that 0 sack bunt, 100 bunt for hit, just means, they're all hits?
Always bunt for hit. I hope he sacrifices bunts for hit. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I could see Ripken being top 3 or 4, but if he's top 3 or 4, he shouldn't be the number 2 PTCS because there's no way he's better than Wells just versus left, right? It's not possible.
Okay, so let me ask the question this way.
Hmm.
So Cal Ripken essentially is going to be a 10 copy limited edition card.
Yes.
What do you think he should sell for?
Oh gosh.
Like, is this
So
Caminiti where you're gonna get quick sells, or are people gonna buy this for?
he's not a quick sell. I mean, theme teams will want him, and
Yeah,
there's
I guess
also
theme
like
teams will want him.
if it is a straight open out of the park. Wait, no, it wouldn't be out. If it's a straight open like defense to now, then he's the best shortstop versus lefties, and he has a use, and that's about it.
Well, no, hold on. No, defense to now, you just run Volpe.
No, but again, if you're one of these people that are buying in-game ZRs wrong and you need more glove, you play Cal there, right? You would play. Oh no, because
No, you run Tony Phillips. Then you run Phillips, or you run, Valentine, or you even run A-Rod, or
So it would have to be historical only, so you couldn't run Volpe.
Yeah.
And
Wait, no, but then
defense
there are
to
a couple
now.
other cards like what's Cronin's.
Well, Cronin plays the other side of shortstop with Cal, right?
He plays the other. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But now you're using two guys that only play shortstop.
historically, I would agree it would probably sell for about 100K. That's what I would think it sells for. That's about what Brothers sold for. I think Brothers was probably even
Brothers
worse
was more
than
playable,
this card.
though, wasn't he?
No, I don't think he was. I think Joey Votto was basically the exact same card. That Brothers card was not good. I had him a
Brothers
little
had
better
like
than
an
Votto,
outfield
but it was
rating or something
so.
though. But yeah.
I don't think there was. I think it was an era thing. If you wanted Brothers, I also disagree. If the whole point of the game, which it seems to be how they vision the game, is to play these big tournaments every month and like spend all month grinding for these big tournaments, the reward should absolutely be worth the money. And I know like it sucks for the casual player that they'll never see this card, blah blah blah. The casual player probably wasn't getting every good card in the game. And it was not like did Brothers sell for 750K? That's ludicrous. It was an improvement on Votto. I wouldn't have even played it in other cards.
I think it's an improvement on Votto in some parks. If you have a
No,
park,
it was,
like my park that I ran most of the end game there was min gap. So if you're running min gap, then you'd rather play Brothers for sure.
yeah. I mean, it was a small improvement on Votto, but I don't ever think it actually should have made a build anyway, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're talking about it being better than like the fourth first baseman, right? It was.
Yeah.
Maybe in some specific build it showed up, but I don't think it was a good card at all.
All right. So I think this Cal, unfortunately, I think it's an F tier card.
I don't know if I mean if we're pricing it based on it being the second place PTCS card, it's F tier. I think it has to be D tier because I think there's some bizarre world in where you might play.
Give him a D for defense.
It's not 92 range. I don't really want to give him a D for defense, but we can give him a D.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's look at Yaz.
Like I said, Evil Smokey, it has to be a tournament in where you're locked out of other cards, right? Like you have to be locked out of Wells to consider it.
So, all right. So we got Yaz. Here's the correct version of Yaz.
Yeah.
It's a really, really splitty card.
Yes. They actually lost I between versions VL. Just something just to point out. I mean, it's vastly improved both ways. It added, like 25 points of range or something.
Is this actually the best defensive left fielder in the game at the moment?
It's the best one that I have showing up. So
yeah.
Say then it's the best one. You probably could find somebody better who has no back.
And it's a good shape because the error is the low part here too.
The infield ratings were not changed, so it's basically a 0 at first base. You can't play it at first base.
So thinking about this a little bit more, it's very splitty.
Yep.
At the moment it drops, I've still got this as the best bat in the game narrowly, I think.
Oh, I don't actually have it being close at all. Um, not at all.
Let me see.
Again, that's
Oh,
probably
sorry.
because
Sorry.
you.
That. No. That's what it is. So I've got pure bat. I've got this like pretty far ahead of James Wood, but
Yep.
Wood has more base running value as well.
Yeah. I mean, Wood's like, uh, like point two war base runner for me. And Yaz is about net neutral.
Right.
So,
And so
um,
Yaz, as a platoon bat, I think so. Immediately, this card plays everywhere. As a platoon bat, probably survives longer. So maybe the interesting question, if you win one, he does have 97 range and 93 arm. If you win this card, are you willing to take several weeks and train him to play center?
I think you have to be if you're keeping it, because center field VR always feels like it's historically not a strong position. And I don't think anybody in the game was anywhere near what this card would be. I can actually just tell you.
No, I guess the question. So last cycle, Oscar played pretty much the whole cycle. That was really one of the cycle's MVPs.
He did. Is this card not better than that Oscar card versus right-handed pitching? It is, right?
Versus righties, I
Already.
think so, but of course
Yeah.
less speed. So the
Less
question is, will
speed.
Oscar this year, where stealing's a bit nerfed, will Oscar this year be better than Yaz?
Um, I don't know. Like, I really don't know. It seems like a lot of the Negro League players had stat changes. Just historically, we found more data on them, updated data, like confirmed some things. So I think it's hard to say because Oscar could look very different. We've had a lot of these Negro League cards look very different than they did previously. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like we could get a Willie Mays next week that's as good as this card. Like I wouldn't blow my mind. I just think the only reason to keep this card is if you want it to win Perfect League, and to do that, it should be trained in center field, which will take you a month, right?
It'll take
It's
you a
gonna
month,
take you a
yeah.
month. But I don't actually. I think the only way you justify keeping this is if you're gonna train it in center. So, because if you're keeping it,
where
you're
are you putting this
expecting.
though? Go ahead.
Oh, I mean, if you're keeping it, I think you have to
Yeah,
expect you're keeping it for more than a month, and it has to be a center fielder.
I
Right?
think so.
When you're saying
And-
where am I putting this, like
Yeah.
where do I prefer it?
Yeah, well, I think we agree this is an S tier card, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
So, I guess the other question I'll ask is, there have been some PTCS cards that almost didn't play at all. There were a couple like that Carlton.
right.
There were some that played, a lot of the cycle.
Hmm.
How long do you think this one plays? Is this because I think Seawit was running Hugh Duffy almost into the end game.
I think Seawit ran Hugh Duffy probably a month too long, maybe a little bit longer than that. But I mean, I had Hugh Duffy playing for maybe 5-6 months after he came out. Is this card gonna last 5 or 6 months? I can't really tell you. Yeah, I agree. You actually could play Carlton because the other lefties were so bad.
The one I finally got at the end of the cycle was Bagwell, who was a very, very tiny improvement over Frank Thomas.
Yeah, and even then, you probably still wanted to DH Frank Thomas or something, because Thomas was great.
I ended up running both, yeah.
Yeah, no, you would run both anyway. So I don't know. How long is this going to last? I really don't know. Probably my biggest worry about the game this year. Talking strictly about tournaments here, right? Strictly about tournaments. Jackie Robinson every year comes out and he's like the best card in the game for a month or two, right?
Except this year.
That's my point, is 2 weeks later we got Volpe. And you can make the argument, if you're not one of these people doing really advanced defense stuff like Smokey Bear or Chimera, you make the argument, looking at what the game tells you, Volpe looks better than Jackie. And to me, that's crazy, because I spent $200K basically on Jackie by not selling the pieces I had, and it's really hard
I think
for
Jackie
me.
costs about 500K still, if you were just
Well,
building
I
from scratch.
had a Schneider already, and I pulled the silver one, right? So it was a little
Yeah, no, I'm saying if you were building him from scratch, I think it still is about 500K to make Jackie.
Right, and he sells for less than 300. So I think it's just I'm hoping we tone it down, or like the cards we're releasing are just slightly better and they're not James Wood every other week, right? In Volpe. Because yeah, like Isadafo says, it's a little scary. I mean, some of the cards that are really scary are very splitty, like this card, and maybe you improve on them that way, but we talked about this at the start of the stream, Charles, that it just feels like what they're doing to evaluate things isn't really lining up with the current environment.
Well,
Just looking at data,
but
right?
I do think
And
the
then
environment's gonna. That's what I was saying is I think the environment's gonna change. So here's what I think the end game cards are gonna look like. Take
oh
a look at
gosh,
this Yaz versus Right.
yeah,
I think the difference between this and the end game card is going to be that you're not going to see so much growth in I, and you're not going to see so much growth in power. But you're going to see, an extra 40 points of BABIP and an extra 50 points of gap power kind of thing. And so you're going to see more well-rounded cards. And by virtue of that, people are going to stop being able to play the more extreme things because the best cards are just going to be better balanced. And that'll bring BABIP up naturally. As I say, I don't think the endgame card is, the same card with 50 points of power. I think it's the same card with, 40 more points of BABIP and 50 points of gap power.
could be. I don't know if I necessarily agree.
Well, I think if they do keep making cards that are this extreme, then I do think that's the direction the game will go. But I don't think they'll do that.
When you say contact cap, like historically contact has a ceiling, but I was under the impression that was more of a visual thing than a physical thing. Like, you could theoretically add 30 more BABIP and 30 more Ks to this card, and it might still say 125 contact, or am I incorrect on that?
That's my understanding is that contact was a composite, but never showed more than 125, even if it...
Yeah, I felt like it could go over. So, like, one of the things we used to talk about a lot is that, like, when a card has this ceiling, it's not equal, and that caused a lot of issues trying to evaluate BABIP on cards back in the day when it wasn't displayed on the card, right? So I don't know.
And Tycho, I think we'll end up just disagreeing on that about the card pool, because everything in the game involves a comparison between different ratings. The reason that there are BABIP issues is because there are cards with very high P BABIP, and there are not cards with correspondingly high BABIP. Now, part of the problem is that the corresponding BABIP for the P BABIPs we have is probably like 180.
So, question though. So, like, but if I go into a tournament, right, and I run, let's say I had 110 BABIP bronze, and I run it in bronze, it's still gonna hit way worse than it should be. Why is that the case then?
Because that 110 needs to be like 180.
Oh, you're just saying they mismatched evaluating the impact of the ratings?
Yeah, so I'm saying the problem is what
they've done... But then how do you solve that with the card pool when you can only go up to 120 BABIP or whatever, right? Like,
so what I'm saying is I think what they're going to have to do... Well, no, I think they're going to go higher. I think what they're going to have to do is take some of these dead ball guys that, hit 420 or whatever and actually give them an appropriate BABIP.
Is it... So, my understanding as well, I'll keep asking questions here, for my sake as well as chat's, aren't all ratings an out-of-the-park relative, right? So it doesn't matter that I'm, like, actually 100 BABIP. If I'm the highest BABIP card, I play like I'm the highest BABIP hitter in the format, to a degree, right? So does it really matter if the card says 180 or 110, right?
It does, because so in league play things get normalized.
Do they not in tournaments?
That's what I'm saying. In tournaments,
okay.
That's my understanding. That's not how it works. So in tournaments, if you have every card is 50 P BABIP and every card is 50 BABIP, then yeah. So I do think the engine fundamentally is broken this year in the following sense. Right. The whole way that Out of the Park was built was based on this Voris McCracken paper kind of laying out the idea that pitchers don't control what happens when a ball is put in play, with a couple of very
Yep.
rare exceptions.
Yes.
And the whole model was built around this idea that that's the way things work. And
Hmm.
suddenly the decision was made not only to introduce it, but to do kind of the, I don't mean weird as in like globally weird, but weird in the context of the rest of the model. The weird thing to start believing the measured stats instead of the fundamentals. So that if you
Right.
suddenly had a player that, managed to only give up a 200 BABIP for a season, you would suddenly treat them as a player that would give up a 200 BABIP in a typical situation,
Hmm.
skill wise.
Yep.
Where everything in the research that drove the rest of the model said that that's not even close to true.
Yep. No, I totally agree. I mean, one of the
Um,
biggest examples I believe is the Dave McNally card, right? Which I think is 1968 Baltimore, which is historically, not the pitcher year. And it's also like one of the greatest baseball defenses of all time. And he had like a 220
yeah.
BABIP, right?
Yep.
Um, and I 100% agree. And I think you and Kamara actually agree, just again a different solution. But I think it's far more likely we see them just shift the entire weighting of hitter BABIP or pitcher BABIP than it is we start getting hitters with 180 BABIP
Well,
rating.
I
I
think
mean,
I think I think
technically,
there are two real solutions here, but the problem is
uh,
at this point both of them are game breaking. Um,
I think
solution
I don't know.
solution number one is what I would do if I were the developers, which is I would just roll
Uh,
back to the 23 model. Uh, I'd roll back to the 23 model and then kind of try to balance it again. But I don't think that's a plausible answer. Um, the problem is that if you try to rescale pitcher BABIP, I think there's a second issue here, which is the scale of BABIP that you're seeing in hitters right now. When we see power creep, that BABIP is going to go way up. So there's a lot of room for BABIP to grow compared with the current set of cards. However, there is not, at least as best I can tell, there isn't a lot of room for pitcher BABIP to grow.
mhm.
There are no, in other words, there are historical parallels for batters that have a lot higher BABIP than the card sets that have been released so far. But there are no historical parallels for pitchers that had like 100 BABIP against. And
Right.
so the problem is that if you project this forward 6 months, then if you do something to rebalance it right now but still try to keep the current model, you're going to have to rebalance it again the other way in like 6 months, because suddenly you're going to have way too high BABIP across the board, because again the pitcher BABIP is what's controlling it. The way this worked last year was that instead what happened was essentially the pitcher BABIPs went up, but the fielding went up, and it was kind of the fielding that was controlling it, and then there was this extra sort of fielding normalization that was coming in. But by trying to make the pitcher control it, I think now they're stuck because they've released pitchers. Like I'm thinking about a pitcher like this Kenley Jansen.
Mhm.
It's not a well balanced pitcher card, right? It's
No, we
you
can all
know
agree on that.
but
Yeah.
but the problem is it's imbalanced in a way that if you think about what an endgame version of that looks like, that's not a card with 200 pitcher BABIP. It's a card that has the same pitcher BABIP, but is much better at everything else, and especially the home run prevention. Like what is the perfect Kenley going to look like? I don't think it's going to have 150 pitcher BABIP. I think it's going to be that same card, but stop giving up bombs.
Right.
Um,
Well,
so I
so
think that's the problem they've got is if you want to get into a
Mhm.
higher BABIP environment without rolling back the model, then any rescaling now is going to break 6 months from now. And waiting till 6 months from now is kind of going to work 6 months from now, which is probably the place they tuned it, but is going to look awkward now. And I don't think you
so
can fix both simultaneously.
So I will say, in a few instances, right? Um, the highest competitive BABIP hitters we have are like 100 BABIP right now. I think the highest we had last year were like 110 tops, right? Do you really think that 10 points of power creep is not justifying fixing the engine? Even if it's, a little low right now and then it sets itself over time, I think is a far better scenario than what we have on our hands right now,
I think it's going to be more than 10 points because although there are cards with around 100 BABIP, nobody's running them.
Yelich is absolutely being run and should be run. He's a good card.
One way.
Um,
Okay, but I mean,
yeah, but I mean,
but I'm saying there are very few cards in the meta that are doing that.
I think if you do that, Chimera, my understanding from it being explained to me is you would overfit a lot, and people could even intentionally try and mess with the normalization if it's like, a quick tournament or a 32 man or whatever,
Oh,
right?
I absolutely would. What I would do is
Yeah.
I'd get all of my friends in like a money tournament to basically screw up the normalization so effectively I get a huge park effect.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So maybe they should be normalizing it based off the eligible card pool or something. I don't really know how you do it. I feel like there is a solution though. I don't think the solution is just give every hitter 180 BABIP. I don't think
Well,
that's going to happen.
I think the
Because how I under
I do think there's a solution, but here's what I think the solution is. I think the
okay,
solution is understanding that the difference between a good BABIP prevention and bad BABIP prevention pitcher cannot be 150 points of BABIP. As long as that is true in the game engine, I don't think any solution we're talking about is going to stop it from being awkward at some levels. Because that's the unrealistic thing that's happening right now.
right?
And
Because you
that's
could
why
go from
pitcher BABIP
200,
dominates.
you can
Yeah.
go from 200 to 350 on like a 20 to 110 scale, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree.
And
Totally agree. But that's what I would like them to fix, right? I would just like them to lessen the importance of pitcher BABIP. I think it would be fine. Any which way, Charles, like they can't just. My understanding is they can't just print cards with 180 BABIP. They'd have to re-rate the entire card pool on their side of things, right? So,
yeah, and the
they
other
could do
problem
that,
is
but I think
the other problem is that as they do this, weird things will happen in League too, I suppose. Um, I guess what I'm trying to say is I think we're looking at solutions that don't address the root cause. I think the root cause isn't as much isn't even as much is it good or bad. From a gameplay point of view, no, I'm seriously, from a gameplay point of
no.
view, I think it's actually fun asking I thought it was fun at the beginning of last season as well when we had a weird baseball environment and you started asking, what if it turns out we started playing baseball on the moon? I think there was a nice Fangraphs article that an OTP player wrote about that. Kind of
Yeah.
based on the way this started last season. I do think one of the things that's supposed to be part of this game and is a lot of fun is asking if baseball starts being played in a very different manner, how can you take the historical set of cards you have available and build an effective team? So
hmm
I do think it's fun to play in an unrealistic environment like this and adjust to it and kind of get people out of their comfort zone.
But for
I
how
don't have a
long?
problem with that, but what I do think is no, but what I do think is that fundamentally the problem is, we sort of I think there's an intent for this to be kind of historical what if kind of game. You know,
Right.
what would happen if Yaz faced Robin Roberts? Actually, that's probably
Mm.
something there's data on, isn't there? Uh,
It's close. Yeah.
but since those are the cards that were up at the moment, you know what I mean,
Right.
though.
I get it. Yep.
And so I think the place that it's tricky is that I think what they did in the current game engine essentially broke the baseball side of things. Um, that what they've done with pitcher BABIP, like all of the research is saying, just isn't something that happens in baseball in the way that they've implemented it.
Hmm.
And this is fundamentally supposed to be a baseball simulator.
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't think the solution is trying to figure out how to patch it. I think the solution basically is the 23 engine. Uh,
Well, I agree, Charles. The problem is we have to band-aid it this year because here's my issue with it, right? Like, it was fun for a month. I'm already kind of done with it, and my reason is, like Chimera points out, um, now it's just iron power. Like we're invalidating like three-quarters, if not more, of the ratings on a hitter because of this environment, you know. And now pitchers are, how much pitcher BABIP do you have, plus some other things, right? Like it it's certainly making the game, I think, for a lot of people a lot less enjoyable. And yeah, I agree. I think certainly implementing pitcher BABIP at this crazy, it's over like a point of BABIP per rating, like point of rating on a card, right? You would agree with that, right?
well, I
Like,
think okay. So
you know,
here's the second solution. The second solution is you change the overall rating formula, and you just change the overall ratings on the cards accordingly.
well, you
And I
can't do
suppose
that retroactively, right? People
well,
have paid money for these cards. You can't do that. It would be lawsuits. You can't do that. so
well, but the problem is if you make a big change to how the game engine works, I think you have the same problem.
no, like
People paid a lot for a card to only to then suddenly discover that like I paid a lot of points because I thought Addy Joss was the best pitcher in the game, and suddenly he's not. Kind of problem.
well, what you do is you give everybody, I don't know, 100K, and you say, "Hey, we're changing things," and you talk about it publicly, and you give real details. This happens all the time in live service games, and it's because they communicate with people and they have established perimeters and a bunch of things, right? You can't, you know, um, and I agree as an offer. They don't have zero value, but the value is just so reduced that like weighting them against power and eyes, it doesn't. It's very hard for a card to pull itself up by other numbers, right? So,
Yeah, but
um,
that's where I think the easier way to do it is to try to have significant power creep in hitter BABIP as a way of
right. But
kind of getting out of it.
I don't know if that's actually possible for this year, knowing how they've explained how their card library kind of works.
Yeah, I mean the concern I have here's the concern I have and why so I'm also more concerned about this than I was a few weeks ago.
Okay.
And the reason I'm more concerned actually has a lot to do with this Cal Ripken card.
Okay. Is it
Because
because
well, go ahead.
they think it's that good and
Yeah,
people
that
with data think
essentially
it's that bad?
yeah, that I think that kind of what's happening is they're probably so here's what I think might be happening.
Okay.
Um,
Let's hear it.
like if I think about how they do the live, I don't mean the live update, and that some weird things happened kind of that made it tough to predict this month. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm thinking about the in-game, rate cards from stats and do live updates, like that kind of thing. What that seems to do is basically assume that everybody is an average major league pitcher when you rate a hitter, and that everybody is an average major league hitter when you rate a pitcher, and sort of rate accordingly, so that against an average, like let's say it were 50 of everything, although I don't know exactly if that's what's scaled around, but basically give ratings so that against somebody that is 50 in every rating or whatever you want to think about it is like your average will perform to a certain standard.
Yep.
And the difference between that and what all of our models are doing is we have different ways of reflecting the player pool.
Yep.
Like what I'm doing with Warbot is I'm essentially running an iterative thing where I start by
Mm-hmm.
asking what are the best cards against kind of a flat distribution, But then I say, okay, well, now that I've identified roughly good cards, let's play them against each other, and again ask against those cards what are good, and kind of keep going until you reach an equilibrium.
Yep.
What you're doing is more stats based, but all that really
Right.
means is it's a version of the same process where you're letting the human managers decide the equilibrium and then observing it.
Yep,
Um,
and then I'm filling in the outliers, right? The cards the human managers missed, or
yeah,
that kind of a thing. And I can go a level above that, which is what I did with League last year, and I'll do again with League this year, right? Which is,
right.
what should people be playing, right?
But even so, it's the same. It's the same idea where what all of our models are doing is not running cards against average cards, but running cards against the cards that either should be or are being run. And because the cards that are currently being run are very extreme outlier type cards, um, what that means is you get a card like Cal Ripken, where I suspect if we ran this Cal against a flat distribution, it might be fine. I think it still is worse than Willie Wells, but you know, against a flat distribution, it's probably a decent enough card. But against a meta where you're seeing a lot of cards that really take advantage of what this does poorly and clobber its BABIP, this is not a good card. And so what I kind of worry about is that OOTP's internal metrics right now kind of are tweaking the power of things against a card set that isn't the one they're really competing with.
Well, it also depends on what they're trying to tweak for in the first place, if anything, right? Because if they're trying to tweak for Diamond League, I've said this 2 times now, I'm going to say it a third time. Diamond League is so easy right now. I'm sorry, guys. I know people have been complaining that it's tough. It is extraordinary. It's just not competitive at all. And I think if they're tweaking for Diamond League, it would be a mistake. It's actually not good enough. And I don't get the feeling they're really tweaking for tournaments, which
I
are
will say
different in the first place.
my roster is not good. Like here's my
Mine
roster, and we're actually over 500 in Diamond League.
Right, and that's my point, right? Your roster is
And
not good. You're over 500 in Diamond.
I'm running.
My roster,
You
my
can
roster
see
is
what I'm running
better.
at the bottom of this roster.
Right, and my roster is better, and it's it's still not what I would consider a top roster, and I'm running away with my Diamond League, right? And
I'm not
things
running
will
away
catch
with
up a
it,
bit with time.
but I honestly expected with this roster that I was probably going to get relegated, and I've kind of been
Yeah.
shocked that like I'm actually I suspect this is probably a positive Pythagorean. Yeah, we're not that good, and it's fueled by like some home field luck. But the point is, we're not going to get relegated with a roster that has this set of cards on the back end.
Right, and I don't. So either they have to be setting what they think is a competitive environment and running off that, or they just need something else. It very clearly what they're doing is not working. Right. We're consistently seeing cards that are low rated and overpowered, or we're seeing cards that are high rated and bad. And like, there's a few that actually fit, but overall, like they've really taken the stance that they know what cards are good. I mean, that's fine, but like no, even running against AI set rosters has different results. That's kind of what Chimera does, right? And
Yeah, but
like
that's what yeah.
they the data isn't supporting their model, which means their model needs to change. I've talked about this with so many people recently, right? Like, I know you don't use data, but you're on the moon, right? And we're on Earth, and I think like in general, you do have to fact check yourself, right? Like we were checking that earlier, right? And the problem is these cards that they're putting out are not gonna pass the fact check, or really the eye test, even, right? Like anybody can look at Ripken and Wells, and it's not close, right?
Well, I think in Ripken's case, it's literally the eye test.
Yeah, because he fails the eye test. He has 60 IVL.
If you have 48 eye, you fail the eye test.
Right. So something's clearly just doesn't line up, and we really haven't had issues like this until this year. So maybe it's the whole PBAB thing. Maybe it's the new database thing. Maybe it's something else. I don't really know. I'm just speculating. I have no idea. But something's got to change because right now, um, I mean,
I do think so.
to
I do think it's the PBABIP thing. Um,
a degree, yeah, I would agree.
but I think I'm more concerned about this than I was a month ago, because a month ago I looked at it and I could kind of say, well, if I sort of sketch in where I think the cards are going, it looks like it works itself out in a few months. And the direction the releases have gone haven't followed the track that I was expecting.
Right.
Because what I figured was that they just tuned it for endgame cards, rather than the other way around, because ultimately we spend more time with the endgame cards kind of than anything else. Um, with that said, I do think it's important that there be flaws. That is to say, I do think that a lot of the skill in the game is supposed to come from identifying the cards that are over or understated for their overall, which basically means the ones that have good and bad shapes. And I think actually what people are complaining about, maybe a better way to say it, isn't that the model is weird, as much as because we've been painted in this extreme corner of a meta, that it's kind of too easy and everybody agrees on what the good cards should be instinctively. There should be some disagreement, and that's kind of where the gameplay comes in.
Yeah, I mean, eye and power, right? Just like you can eyeball cards. Like people don't need a model or don't need anything. They just look at eye and power, right? And like, we're seeing cards that are coming out as gold cards, right? That we wouldn't play in bronze, right? And that's I agree. I don't think every card needs to be perfectly rated. It's better if they're not. But things aren't even close, right? Remotely, and to me, it's a little sad because it just creates these weird,
Yeah.
inequities. Or we see somebody like Anthony Volpe be better than Jackie Robinson, and then the card I spent all
Yeah.
that money on is worse, right? And
Yeah.
I don't really know, but like I really hope it changes personally, just as somebody who likes playing the game, because it's not right. And Isadafo brings up that Sporer is saying we overtrust our models, and we do. I agree, we do. The problem is our models line up with what's happening, and I don't know how theirs can if they think Cal Ripken is an elite shortstop. I can't buy it.
I
really
will also
can't.
say there have been a few cards this year where, at least for me, I failed the eye test. So I think the best example we talked about on stream before was this Digo. I think Digo, is that how you pronounce his name?
People keep saying it's Digo, but Baseball Reference has it as Dihigo. So I don't know. Maybe Baseball Reference
Yeah.
is wrong, but
Okay, we'll go with Dihigo then. And I assume it's Martin then, if it's Cuban.
yeah. Probably. I definitely haven't been saying that right then.
Uh, but this was a
Yes,
card.
Martin Dihigo. Yes.
Dahigo. Martin Dahigo.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was a card. So this was a card where, by eye, I looked at this on stream and said, I don't see this being playable, and then kind of pulled up the model and discovered I was wrong. So I don't
Right.
think every card passes for the eye test, but I
Yeah.
think a lot of this,
Well, we also didn't know
yeah.
it was a two-way because you can't tell in the card shop that it's a two-way, right?
That's
That was
true.
our big reveal with him.
So Isadafo meant. So I think the juice is rather that the overall rating is a composite, and
Uh-huh.
it weights everything in a certain way, and the things that are important to the meta right now are not the things that are weighted most importantly. So for example, you look at McNally. Why is McNally 64 overall? Well,
Yep.
because the important pieces of the rating, okay, stuff, 60s is not excellent. Movement really is a composite, and you can see that they're weighting homer prevention much more than P-BABIP in this composite. And so the movement looks low, and the control's okay. And, in other words, if you took this card and you took the movement rating and you just copied it for both the Homer and P. BABIP instead of this shape, this would be a perfectly low bronze card. You know,
Yep.
say, and maybe the most extreme version of this, you know, is this Gallo, where,
Yep.
you know, this bat, because the BABIP is so low, the avoid K is so low, the gap power is so low.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
What Isadafa is referring to
yeah,
is they've talked about they'll tweak cards, right? And normally I assume when they tweak cards, they don't always tweak an overall. The problem is, like, I think James Wood is a 98 because he says center fielder, and the algorithm gives him bad defense in center field, ignoring the fact that he plays left and right field, right? And is, like, the best card in the game at those two positions. So
yeah. I think. Well, this was similar. You remember with the live updates last year, or was it 2 years ago? The one
Kyle
where
Lewis,
Vlad Guerrero,
yes.
the one where Vlad Guerrero's position ended up kind of
Oh,
being important because at the
yeah,
wrong
he was a
position he'd never go perfect.
right. Well, there was a Kyle Lewis as well that was injured. It was the best card in Iron, and they changed its position, and it went to silver without it actually being a rating that changed, right? And they've talked that's a thing that happens. But, like, if James Wood is going to be fully trained in left and right fields, you can't evaluate him as just a center fielder. It's not fair to the rest of us. And even still, he's the best center fielder in the game. So I don't know.
Yeah. So I think I'm more worried than I was a month ago. But I think this is, you know, I do also think that the nature of this game and part of the job on the player side is things happen and it's our job to adjust to them. So I think, you know, I don't like that we're out of a regime that I would recognize as a model of baseball in that sense, but I still enjoy the challenge of trying to figure out how to adjust to the game that we're now playing. If that sort of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is I haven't really talked about this a lot. Maybe I shouldn't. Um,
We can go
yeah,
on the
it's-
limited edition cards if you want. I'll leave it up to you.
yeah, let's go on to the limiteds. If Wood and Volpe got the juice, I don't know why they're high diamond. Like, why is Jordan Walker as good as he is? Why is Gunner and whatever comparable? I don't know. We
Yeah.
can go on. Like I said, I mean, clearly there's a mismatch between their model in the data, and it's probably not that their model is bad. It's probably that their model is, you know, not set to this environment, or it's just looking in the wrong area, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm gonna stop it there because I think I've talked about it too much now.
All right, let's we'll save that for another stream. Or you get a
Yeah.
rant segment each week now, right? So you can
I have to be a lot kinder on his stream than I normally would like to be, because I just never want to get that man in trouble. He's been so nice to me. Shout out to Laptop Hound. He's been excellent.
He's a great guy.
I don't care about you as much. I'll talk crap on your stream all day. So
fair
yeah.
enough. Just you know, family stream. And I don't mean in that Pittsburgh Pirates sense.
Or anything Philly.
Yeah.
Or anything
or
Philadelphia.
really anything Phillies, yeah. And to be okay, so you know, and to be fair, I grew up in Philly, but you know, Philly is the kind of place where, you know, after the Eagles won the Super Bowl, my brother did ask me, you know, just like hypothetically and all, like if one were to end up with a police horse, how should one handle that? You know. So yeah, Bobby Bonds. Bobby
Bonds. I think
Okay,
this
I
card
actually
is.
have not seen this card at all yet. Did this just come out today, or have I just been?
This came out an hour before the Grove did, so like 2 hours before our stream.
Okay. All right. So at least
So
I
like
have a good
17
excuse for
hours
not
ago
seeing
now.
it. And is this 100 or 25?
This is good question. It is 100 of.
100 of. Okay.
I don't think he's quite
And there's
1953
no last
shape.
10 yet.
I'd want a lot more eye. Oh, there's none sold yet. This card is good. I don't know if it's like you have. I think where you want this card is you're playing Elijah Green in center or left, and then you play this in right field.
Okay.
I actually think
Well,
that's fine.
okay,
I
so
think
this
you
is
could
it. All
do
right,
that.
so this is interesting. So my model and your model are going to disagree on this, I think, for a key reason.
For your gap power.
Well, also this card has 92 speed and 69 stealing. And the question is that a positive or negative feature?
Well, so if you have it negative, I would say your model's wrong. Any good manager should never have negative base stealing. So he could have negative base running.
Right.
He's not going to have negative base stealing in my model because I'm assuming everybody uses my model as a competent manager and turns off their stolen base slider. But it's a big assumption.
Right. So yeah, so I've got this card as the top right field option in silver now, I think.
Better than green? Or are you playing green elsewhere than playing this?
I've got this a little better than green. I'm trying to see why. So okay, I think the bat's a fair bit better is the answer.
No, I don't have the bat better. Oh, I have the bat better VR. I have it a lot worse VL.
You know I'm gonna love
format.
okay. Wait, that's okay. So that's the difference. So I've got green with a few points higher OPS, but I've got Bonds 8 points higher WOBA because just 15 points of I is a lot.
Well, what is your WOBA weight for I? I also use WOBA. How high is it? Are we over 1, Charles? I don't know. Using the WOBA weights for the current gold environment, I would have this as a worse bat than green. But it's got a little bit worse defense, the same base. I mean, I have it just being worse VL. It's very close VR. It's like a better bat, same base running, a little worse glove. I would just play green elsewhere and then play this in right field. I think this card's very good. I would play this card.
Solid. I don't think this is any sort of must-have, and I think the fact that he only plays one position means you don't really want to platoon him, and you never want to use him as a backup, so that limits the shelf life.
But like he's the best card right now, so is he still A tier?
Yeah, I think you can give him a solid A.
All right, let's give him an A tier. I think that's totally fair. Yeah. I'm down.
All right, how about Ernie Lombardi? If I can spell. We're 125K, so there's an established price here. Well, I don't have to look too hard at this one because as soon as I see the low catcher ability and the absolute lack of I almost want to stop evaluating. I'll see what the model says.
Okay, your thing is gonna hate this a lot more than my thing. This card is pretty good, I actually think. I didn't like it as much like first impression. Something I'll talk about a little bit because it's been on my mind is these cards with these really weird single season splits would be a lot better cards if the splits were all facing the same way. You know what I mean? Like if this card said, that he's 99 BABIP and 87 power and 99 AK and 67 I one direction, it's a great card. The problem is splitting it like this kind of leaves me a little wanting. I think it's a little bit better of a bat VR than VL because of the eye. I mean, it has better BABIP stuff, but then lower power, and the defense is not good, but it's not terrible. It gets better as you go into older eras. I don't really know. I think Diamond Catcher is just really bad. Like, really, really bad right now. So I would have this being the best, you're gonna laugh, not Rudy York catcher. But then it's like, he's marginally better than Hoyles. Like, he's worse than Hoyles VL, he's better VR. So maybe, it's not a 130,000 point card though, it's like maybe a 20,000 point card. I guess it's a 25,000 point card, right?
I really just want this card to be unplayable because I don't think it's good enough defensively to play catcher, and I don't think the eye's good enough to DH.
So, question: where's like your catcher ability floor then? Because I don't have it being that much worse than the average gold catcher, because I do think arm is super important. Like, obviously, the ability is a huge loss, right? But
Yeah.
do you have? I mean, I could totally see you being right on that statement. That wouldn't be crazy to me.
I mean, I look, the one that I'm still struggling to evaluate is Drew Romo.
Yeah, like how much is he actually
Like,
worth with
Drew,
that crazy
Drew
number?
Romo is either like the best catcher in Diamond or unplayable in Silver, and probably not anywhere in between. And I'm still not sure which the right answer is.
I would agree.
Currently, I think I'm leaning toward best catcher in Diamond slightly, but I'm not. But I'm not sure I'm right yet.
Yeah, I
And
don't.
and the problem is that the framing statistics don't really help that much.
Oh, do you think they're not accurate? I was unsure.
Well, I can't tell.
So funny enough, yeah, probably this card's almost at the rate where the arm is too good, where people just don't run enough against him for him to throw them out almost 50% of the time. Um, and then like looking at the actual defensive value. Wait, does this not line up with this? No, it does. I mean, I have him like negative half a war defensively of how bad the framing is, but um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Like he's
if
really
the
like
bat had a better
almost a
shape,
full. He's almost a full war negative like framing, and then he's just really good with the glove or the arm. Sorry.
yeah, I mean, if the bat had just a little better shape,
I mean, the competition's just so bad. Like, if you're saying this card's unplayable, I would agree that Drew Romo then is the best diamond catcher. I don't know if that's true though. Either way, like you
well,
know,
so
I don't know.
I think the problem is that there are a couple offensive catchers that are significantly worse than this, but are catchers, and I think that's the competition. So like a couple cards to consider. So first question, where if you're going to look at this as a catcher, let's say you look at this as an offensive catcher, would we rather run this bat or Fred Carroll? And I'm just
I
going to look at
don't.
this 122i,
I have Fred
and I'm
Carroll
going to tend
being
to
about.
run Carroll.
It's about Fred Carroll's about half the bat value of Ernie Lombardi. It's not comparable. Fred Carroll says 23 power. He never hits a home run. I don't care if he walks all the time. It's really not.
Yeah, but
I don't think that's
if you're only
comparable,
going to
Charles.
if you're only going to run these guys in dead ball, then I think I'd rather run Carroll.
All right. Well, if we're running them in dead ball, we're never running Lombardi. But we're talking about like a normal card, right? Like
Yeah.
like they actually lined up perfectly with each other. Like if I look at what's Carroll's strong side, VL, right? It's
Sorry,
Lombardi's
Carroll
weak
again.
side. It doesn't matter. They're like, yeah, okay. So Carroll's gonna walk 110 times more a season, but he's gonna hit 19 less home runs.
Yep.
He's gonna strike out more, and he's gonna hit like 50 less balls in play. Like,
Okay, hold on.
I
If he's
don't-
gonna, but hold on. But if you're gonna say you get 110 walks and 19 homers, which is worth more? What are your linear weights?
well, you also have to add like 50 hits, of which 15 of them are extra base hits, and then it's like another 35 singles.
Because
So he comes
the walks are gonna. Okay, so if you're doing this with like linear weights, so a homer is
Walks are a
worth.
.69. A homer is 1.96.
Okay,
Those are some nice numbers.
sure. So a homer is a little bit under 3 times as good
Two.
as a walk.
Yeah.
So that means 19 homers is the equivalent of like 57 walks, and then you said you get another 35 hits, which
35
is,
singles.
okay. So those 35 singles are what, another 45-ish walks?
I think it's a little more than that. It's like 1.2. No, you're right. It's about zero point 0.9 for a single, 0.7 for a walk. So yeah. And then
Okay.
you add all the extra base hits, which you like so much. We
I
get an
do.
extra like what do we get? We get like
Well, hold
one
on.
less triple.
Carroll has 90 gap power, and what does Lombardi have? Because I thought those are closer. Yeah, Carroll has more gap power.
Right, but we're still getting way more hits because Lombardi's putting way more balls in play and has a higher BABIP VL. It's not close. So, we're still getting 15 more extra base hits, of which 16 are doubles, and you lose one triple because Lombardi's slow.
So it's pretty close. So I think that, I mean, if it's
It
110
is
walks, I think that comes out pretty close then.
well. You did all your head math, and I could have told you the WOBA number the whole time, which is 13. Like it's 0.013 higher for Lombardi, which is like about 9 bat runs higher than Carroll. I don't really have it being close. um, it's not. It really isn't that close.
But I think if you're gonna
Yeah.
go with a more offensive catcher, why not
You
go with a
play.
combination like here there's this Johnny
I mean, you,
Roseborough, for example, where the catcher ability's better and you have still kind of a playable bat.
the bat is like an average gold bat, which is fine. The
Yeah,
glove is a lot better. Yeah, I mean, I have
exactly.
it like 5.5 runs better, so like half a war. But the bat is like a huge difference, right? It's like 16-0 in bat runs. I don't know.
Or you could
I
run,
don't quite.
you could run this Avilov, is another example.
Avila. I'd like Avila more than Carroll. I still don't quite like Avila though. His glove is only 2 runs better, and his bat's 10 runs worse. Math don't add up. Yes, I would run Napoli over any of these cards, but Napoli's also the best catcher in the game.
Yeah, but,
so.
I think we're looking at diamond. I think you're looking at this as a diamond, not as a not
Yeah.
as
This
an open.
this is certainly not competitive with Napoli, but I don't really think anybody is. So I don't know.
So
Like,
where do we put Lombardi?
I very clearly have him as like the best catcher I'd play at catcher in Diamond. If you don't think you'd actually play him, I guess that's fine. I mean, I don't know. You seem to have the bat and the glove worse than I do.
Well, you know how much I like I.
Yeah, but like the rest of the cards are actually pretty good. So I don't know, Charles. I would say it's got. I won't compromise for less than a B.
All
It
right,
can be a B.
I'll give him a B.
It's a B that really shouldn't cost more than 25K, even being a 25.
All right, and finally we have our Grover Cleveland. Is this 25 or 100? This is 25.
25.
This is a good card.
Yeah, it's the good card, right? I mean, we talked earlier. I think you said Joss was just a little higher. I don't remember if that was in 53 or in general.
I think I think in 53 I have Joss very slightly higher. If you're looking at this as a PTCS card in general, I have this one higher, just because Joss has a few extra points of control.
Hamlet, we can't just end the discussion. It's very important that all our viewers know exactly how broken this card is. You should know the drill by now. I actually have it being a lot higher than Joss. I will say my thing has always liked stuff more than most other people's models. They do seem very similar. Let me just double check why I have it a lot higher, just to fact check myself. Always a good thing to do.
Well, I also let me also run this because I was running it in tournaments, but this is a card you're looking at as a league card for sure. So let me run this in league.
No
So let me
question.
run the league model as well on this because that also looks a
Yeah.
bit different.
I do not have a league model yet. I'll hopefully have one in the next week or two. Now that I'm in Diamond, I'll make some other people give me data.
Okay, so the league model, this is more significantly better than Joss.
Yeah. Man, it really, really likes this specific gap of stuff. Does not think. Oh, that's.
Once won you 2 consecutive PTCS
Oh, it's
tournaments.
the
Very,
same.
very, very nice.
What home run is this too? Oh, it did actually do that for
Yeah,
him.
yes. The
Yeah.
okay, so I mean, I liked the version of this last year when he was named Pete. I played that card for probably half of the cycle in League.
Yeah, I think the biggest argument for Joss over Grover is the stamina.
So, well, there are two
Um,
things. There's the stamina, and then also, um, I think
the
the other reason that
control.
the other reason my model likes Joss a bit better is the reverse splits.
Wait, but Joss Grover just doesn't have splits, but they're as good. I don't think it matters.
Well,
Grover has the same home run rating. His BABIP's a little lower,
right.
but
Sorry.
it's the same.
What I mean is that my model is going to run both against a somewhat lefty heavy mix, and against a somewhat lefty heavy mix, Joss gets better and Grover stays the same. That's what I
See,
mean.
we've said this twice. The Delta, Charles, is I have Grover being better VL and VR. Um, it's a lot closer VL than it is VR, but
So it's basically, in my weighted stuff, I've got Grover with something like 14 points of stuff and a point of home run prevention, and
right.
Joss has 8 points of control and a point of pitcher BABIP.
So here's where we're gonna differ, right? I have Grover striking out like an extra. What is this? 36 batters, basically both ways. Okay, a little more VR, right? 35 batters. I have him giving up, I don't know, 7 more walks, and he's better at home run prevention. So the PBABIP obviously favors Joss, but by the amount I have it favoring Joss, Grover makes up for it by striking out more hitters. So I don't know.
Um, yeah, I think what I end up finding is that in League, I think Grover's going to be a fair bit better.
You have strikeouts being worth more in league. I think that's generally true. Yeah.
And in tournaments, I have Grover being a little bit better, but it's pretty close. And when you go to historical eras where the value of stuff goes down a little bit compared with control, then I have Joss starting to be a little bit better when you go more toward dead ball.
Oh, I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. Like as you
So,
go older, stuff is less, control is more, and in I think in league it's definitely Grover. Um, the stamina is the biggest argument, right? How much is 12 points of stamina worth, or whatever, right?
yeah.
Um,
Oh, sorry. When I said I have 3 licenses, I don't mean simultaneously. I meant like buying OTP 22, 23, and 24.
yeah.
No, I just
Yeah.
feel, yeah.
I don't think you can have multiple licenses on Steam without multiple Steam accounts. I believe, which is a whole nother myth. And I'm not even sure if that works. Actually, I don't know.
Yeah, no, for me, it's not a disposable income thing, Coach Ruffy. It's that I actually kind of like the challenge. Like
Yeah.
in real life, I'm a Red Sox fan, and I think sometimes it's fun to try to be the Rays.
Yeah, I agree with that. I didn't really plan on spending anything this year, and then I got given money, which was very cool of somebody to do. But I do have a lot of money in the game this year that is not my own. So, kind of sweet.
Are you trying to tell me you're using somebody else's big PP package?
Somebody gave me their big PP, Charles. Yes, they gave me a big PP. I accepted it, and I have a lot of cards now. All of a sudden, yeah. Yeah, I agree with Izadafo. Like, other than PT Plus in the package, there hasn't really ever been like a point where perfect points were worth it, and they certainly are this year. So that's kind of cool.
Look, I think the compelling reason to spend for me, and the reason I'm getting PT Plus, is just supporting the developers.
Yeah,
I've been a game
absolutely.
developer in a past life and all that, and you know
Hmm.
I do believe strongly in supporting developers where it's funny because we did have this discussion earlier where I think we agreed, and some of chat did as well, that we didn't love all of the direction that the game was going this year and all of the changes. But at the same time, I really appreciate that they're continually trying to do stuff. Um,
Yeah,
and I know
yeah,
as a game designer, you're not going to hit every time.
Mm-hmm.
and that part of this is figuring out how to adjust when that happens. But I would much rather that they did. They've tried to make a lot of things better this cycle. Uh,
Uh-huh.
some of them I think have worked. I think the concept of the PTCS is a lot better. Um, we can quibble about details of execution, but I think that a lot of effort's been put into really improving that, and I think it has been much more of a feature. Um, I think the pitcher BABIP thing probably was a bad decision, but you're not going to get everyone right, and
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
you're not going to please all of your audience. Some of the things that I think are mistakes may be just fine for most of the audience.
Yeah, I mean everybody has their takes and their opinions, right? And whatever. And I I think a lot of people don't realize like how much I appreciate like the work they put in and everything, and I think overall they do a really good job. Like obviously there's a list of things I would change, but like that's my things, right? And it's very different than a lot of people's things. I would say in general, I feel like they've kind of missed the mark on card balancing this year, but they also overhauled the entire pitching system and it's having some effects in a bunch of places. So, it's they do good work. They certainly have earned quite a bit of my money for the amount of time I've put in the game. And I actually forgot. I am buying PT Plus myself, of course, this year, and I'll probably continue to do so as long as I play the game, right?
Yeah,
Because
I do think.
I
Yeah.
want them to get their money. I think in a lot of cases, if they had more money, they could even make the game a better place, right? So, um,
Yeah,
I have
and
no issue. Like, if people don't want to spend money, like, if you don't have it, then don't spend money. Absolutely. You can have fun playing this game free to play. And if you want the challenge, do that too, right? Like, there's never any pressure. That's why I kind of like the PT Plus system. I think we all thought it was kind of must have, and it certainly is if, like, your goal is to qualify for every PTCS, but I think outside of that, it really isn't. And I think that's almost a good thing, right? It's great value, but you don't have to do it.
and
Like,
I will
don't
also
feel
say
obligated,
I
right?
think my goal this next block will not be to qualify for every PTCS. Um,
Yeah,
I
I
think I
was
think I
like,
learned that it basically cost me 2 weeks of earning things in the tournaments that I could do really well in to try to grind through the formats where there are tiny edges and I had to queue for long periods, and
hmm
that ultimately I probably would have been better off skipping a couple of those formats and earning more in the daily tournaments and weekly tournaments rather than trying to qualify for everything.
yep. There's always trade-offs to doing things certain
Um,
ways, right? And
but yeah, I
um,
think So I do think it's good to support the developers. I think the developers also support the community in a lot of ways that maybe are a little bit behind the scenes. Um, I mean, even just things like I really hope everybody got their 5 drops over the course of our stream. You can't say we haven't rambled on long enough for that.
yeah, that's a fair statement, as it's been 3.5 hours. But uh,
So I do think it's worth supporting the development
oh
even when
yeah,
I don't
oh
agree
yeah.
with every decision they're making. Um,
Right. I mean, it's not about like for me personally. It's not like I'm not gonna give them my money or something because I don't agree with anything. Like no, like I play your game. You're gonna do more if you have more money anyway, and like I want you guys to like have a nice life. Like you've made something I've greatly enjoyed over the years, right? Like that's I'm not pulling money because I'm upset. I'm never gonna do that, right? As long as I'm playing the game, I'll do plus and whatever else I want, right? And I think that's more than fair.
yeah,
So.
but I will say that I think Plus is on the one hand a very efficient use of that money as far as like the return in points, but on the other hand, I don't think it's a big enough edge to even have that level of spending be must have.
So I have an issue with Plus that's like a very unique issue, probably for a lot of people here, because a lot of people here aren't like huge gamers, right? Um, the whole purpose of a gotcha game, GACHA, which is what we play in Perfect Team, right? Where you spend money to progress and make your team better, and you can grind it or you can spend money. The purpose of that is to spend money to save time, right? So if you spend money, you don't have to grind the game. And it should be accessible to the people who grind or the people who spend. The real issue I have with PT Plus is rather silly, but it's the fact that I'm spending more money to then spend more time on the game, and to me that's just like fundamentally kind of flawed. Like, I would wish PT Plus let me spend less time playing the game because I'm spending money every month, right? And maybe
That's
not
fair.
everybody has that opinion, but that's kind of like, to me, that's how gacha games just work, and it was a little weird seeing it be a little backwards, but
Fair enough.
it's still excellent value for your money, right? Overall, so.
Right. Anyway, this is probably a good place to wrap up. So
You didn't-
Grover,
you didn't give-
we're
we
giving
didn't
an S
decide-
tier, I think, right? I think we can give Grover an S tier pretty clearly.
I don't think we agreed on that yet, Charles. We have to talk about it for another half hour, very quickly. Yeah, I mean, obvious S tier, no question about it. So, yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed this. I'm sorry I didn't get to do it. I think the last 2 weeks. I know you've kept trying to have me on, and I've just had a lot going on right now.
All right, we'll
It's
try
a
to
really
we'll try
long-
again next week with what I swear is going to be a shorter stream.
No, I mean, Charles, I'm always down to do these. Maybe it can't be every Friday specifically, but I will say I really value because you do have a rather unique take on some of the things in the game, and I really value talking with you, and I'm sure the community feels the same way because it's really insightful to like. We talked about this all this morning, where you say stuff all the time, and nobody knows what on earth you mean, and you kind of like it that way. But I feel like if I can sit down and talk with you like this, it's actually like really good, right? So I think I may help you a little bit along the way.
Fair enough. That's true. As Gabagu points out, yeah, it was way too quick without Kidneys the last 2 weeks. All right, let me see if we can find somebody fun to raid. Is there anybody?
We got to do it before EVC raids us, because I'm
All
pretty
right, we
sure
gotta
he's
raid.
live
All
right
right,
now.
then we're raid. All right, let's definitely. We've tried to raid EVC the last couple times, and
But
like
we got to
we
beat him
missed.
into it.
We missed. So I think we should definitely raid EVC now.
All right.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll be back next week where surely it'll be a quicker
Oh.
stream because we won't have many cards. I mean, there are only 12 released this week, but you know.
Also, my last note for today, and then I'll let you actually read. Chat, I'm going to have a very, very special stream on Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern on my channel. Do not miss it. It will be for everybody from Charles to somebody just starting the game. One of the coolest things you'll probably ever see on a Perfect Team stream. So,
Do you want to give us any hints or?
I'm gonna have somebody on. I don't know if they're still in the chat. They were here earlier. I'm gonna have somebody on stream that I've kind of dreamed of having on stream for like a year and a half now. So very excited. It's going to be a very data-driven stream. No, it's not you, Dad.
It's. I mean, look. I can tell it's exciting because you're actually scheduling it in advance.
Yeah, I've been talking about with this person in a while, and today they were like, "Let's finally set a date." I'm like, "Yeah, fine, we'll do it." So yeah, don't miss it. Literally, do not miss it. It will be an incredible stream this Wednesday at 9.
You know, I still haven't done one. I actually still haven't done one of those, have I?
What? Scheduled stream? Not
Yeah.
really, have you?
No. All right. Anyway, sounds good. We're gonna go raid EVC before he raids us.
Yeah, let's
Thanks
do it.
everyone. If somehow in 3.5 hours you haven't managed to get 5 drops, then we've got more for you. And yeah, thanks everyone.
Yeah, and don't miss EVC anyway, because he's great content.
He is. All right. See you.
Bye!